Sacred Symbols is sponsored by DraftKings, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. It's time for you to score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use the code SACRED when you sign up. That's SACRED. Again, that's the sign-up code SACRED for new customers on the DraftKings app to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 of your own. And get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium, too. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-396. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-879-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort of Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/FTBALL. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 323. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Reagan. Chris, good to see you today, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. I keep stumbling across videos immediately after I wake up that just bother the hell out of me. And today it was this guy spelunking in a cave, like just really in like a thin.
Yeah.
And it was just like, would you do this for $1 million? Like, no. It's probably one of the few things I wouldn't do for any amount of money is slither down a hole.
Ugh.
You know? Like, I can't.
Yeah, like, how are you going to get out? You know?
I don't know, man. I can't. That's like one of those things where it's like, I'm sure like an accident. Look, I'm sure the accidents that happen in these situations are very tragic, but I cannot move myself.
Yeah, who cares?
To tears for these people.
Yeah, who cares? It's like when you die. It's like when you die on Everest. It's like, oh yeah,
yeah. It's just like,
is that right?
Is that right?
I mean, that's nice to know.
Yeah,
but you did this to yourself. Yeah, I appreciate the adventurism. Like, I love people just being like, I'm fucking going. It's the spirit that had people cross the oceans in fucking boats and not know where they're going. I love all that kind of stuff, but no. I'm not going to be spelunking underwater. I'm not going to be spelunking at all. I'm not going to be swimming in the crevices. You know, I'm too fat for that anyway.
Yeah.
My belly wouldn't let me into one of those crevices, probably.
Oh, man. How about you? What do you got going on?
I'm good, man. Yeah, we rolled in just a few minutes late today because I woke up like 20 minutes ago. I woke up at like 10 and then I should have just gotten up because we fly to California for the live show tomorrow. It's worth noting we're recording this on a Wednesday. We usually record these on Thursday, so there might be things that happen that won't be included in the show because of the nature of doing that. But yeah, I have to get up tomorrow at like 4:30 in the morning. So because we have like a cab coming to get us at like 4:45 or something and just bring us to the airport. So I wanted to kind of get up a little earlier today, just to kind of be a little more tired, maybe at a normal time, but it wasn't to be. So I got up for that. And then I write the show the night before, but I like to go through all the inquiries because we get inquiries overnight and then see if any of them fit in the show and all of that. So I'm coming in a little hot, but things are okay. Looking forward to the trip. It's going to be a quick trip because I was thinking about it. It's kind of funny. Like we're leaving Thursday morning and by Saturday night, I'll be back. So it's not really much of a trip. You just got to kind of put yourself in the mentality of like, this is happening. And I haven't been to California since I left. So
damn, it's been a while.
Yeah, and I haven't been to San Diego since 2018, maybe something like that. So yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be good. Hope you guys can all join us there. Get your last minute tickets, bit.ly/Sacred Dukes. A few hundred of you coming to join us. We're really excited to see all of you guys out there. It's going to be a quiz show between us and Defining Duke. We're going to have a bunch of guests there, including David Jaffe and Rick Hogue and everyone. It's going to be an interesting group. We'll miss some of the people that are not going to be there. Dustin's not coming. He was supposed to, but obviously things have changed. And who else isn't going to be there? Gene won't be there. because we don't want to include. Well, we thought we would do more of these live shows than we ended up doing, or that we are going to end up doing. And I wanted to kind of divide and conquer. I thought that would be interesting, but I just don't think there's necessarily like the demand for the San Diego show is not great. So my whole thing was maybe we just do fewer shows with all of us. But I said already, I said in a letter on Patreon when I was just reminding everyone of the show a few weeks ago, I'm like, we probably won't even do a show next year. And if we do, it won't be domestic. That way we can build up some support for a bigger show in the future. Because, you know, a few hundred people in San Diego, that's good. I was hoping for a little more, but I can deal with that. As long as we don't lose money. Yeah. I don't care. I'm not even interested in making money on these things. I really am not. And I don't think we're going to make very much money on this. But just as long as we don't lose money, I won't lose any sleep over it. So I'm really looking forward to the live show. It's going to be fun. We're all going to be together. It's a nice excuse for us to all get together, which I think is kind of cool. And you know, the Dukes will be there, obviously, and everyone else. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Lot to handle today, though, before we go.
Oh yeah.
Are you ready? Are you looking forward to the show? When are you coming? Are you coming down Thursday?
Yeah, I'm gonna drive. I'm gonna drive down on Thursday. I'm gonna try and film some stuff while I'm down there too. I got to bring some camera stuff. But I think it'll be fun. I like San Diego a lot, and I haven't really had a real reason to go down. I think the last time I went down there, I took my parents to the San Diego Zoo, and like we went and got ostrich burgers.
Nice.
At this place called Crazy Burger, crazy with 2 E's. Just so you know, it's real crazy.
Yeah, it's real. It is nuts.
Yeah, that's the real crazy. But yeah, it'll be nice to be in San Diego again. It's especially because right now, I don't know if it's today or tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow in where I live, it's going to be 103.
Oof.
And then the next day is going to be 106.
Yeah, it's the Indian summer now, you know?
Yeah, so it's like in San Diego, it's going to be a breeze. It's going to be like 80 or something, like really, really tolerable. We got that nice sea breeze that seems to coat that entire area. So it's going to be like, I'm going to be living it up compared to my friends here who are going to be sweltering and burning in their sleep.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. Nice. It's funny. I forgot about that in California, like kind of that late, especially in San Francisco. It doesn't get that hot, but in San Francisco, it becomes uncomfortable for a few weeks every year, which is weird because it's the best thing about San Francisco is the weather. The weather's perfect. It's perfect. I don't know why or how. Well, I do know why. It's the peninsula and all that, but so here it was that hot here for a while, like around 190s, and now it just dropped off. We closed the pool, and then the next day it just started, and you can look like the 10-day forecast. It's just like in the 70s. I'm like, yes, we're out. Yes,
you made it.
Oh my god, dude, it was bad. All right, well, Chris, I'll see you soon. I'm looking forward to that. But we have a show to do in the meantime. The show will go live the day our live show happens. It will go public when we're all long back home from the show. So things are moving quickly, but it's good to be here with all of you. Where are my notes? There they are. I have the wrong tab up. This is Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. You guys know the drill. We go live each and every week as we have since 2018 without missing a week somehow. You can find us on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia for early ad-free access, the ability to submit your questions and inquiries to the audience on the weekly threads. Access to Sacred Symbols Plus are once or twice weekly supplement to the show. Lots of value over there. We could not do it without you over on patreon.com/laststandmedia, whether it's at $1, $2, $5, whatever you'd like to do. $5, the sweet spot to get all of that good stuff. So Free to Bandito wrote into us and said, "What's up, fellas? On the most recent Sacred Symbols podcast, Colin and Brad discussed The Last of Us Part 2. I was wondering if maybe a Sacred Symbols Plus episode could do a re-review of this game. Not saying you and Chris didn't do a good job the first time. Let's put an asterisk on that for now. But I definitely think this could be a better and more engaging conversation with full spoilers. There are a lot of different personalities now than back then. Maddie has stated he doesn't like the story. Colin considers it a masterpiece and all in between. I understand that with time and people wanting to replay it, as Brad stated, it can complicate it. This game comes up a lot around this network, and that lets me know that's more important than most people consider." Chris, do you remember when we did an episode in 2020 for the show and then everyone got mad at it, so we did another one? Do you remember that?
I do remember that. But it's been so long though, I don't even remember. I have no recollection of what the hell we said in that episode.
No, me neither. What I remember about it is we did an episode, we put it up, we were pretty happy with it. Everyone was mad at it because we didn't like sufficiently, and it was like 2.5 hours long. So then we did another episode that tried to talk and do the things that people wanted, and I don't know if that might not have fit the bill either. I am totally open to doing something with The Last of Us Part 2. I don't know how I want to go about it though, because I want to play it again. I played it twice when it came out and got the platinum, and I have not played it since. I bought it on PS5 earlier this year. It was actually on my cross media bar for a while because I was going to play like the extra stuff. Like there's like a roguelike kind of, I don't know, enemy based thing that they have going on in the game now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was like a whole new addition to it. But then I never really got to it. And then, so I'm really I've had really good experiences, as we know on the show, by playing the previous game or games in something and then going right into the new one. And what would be ideal would be to play The Last of Us, and especially The Last of Us Part 2, and then into The Last of Us Part 3. But who the hell knows when that's going to happen? Because I'm going to do that with Ghost of Tsushima. I just did that with Spider-Man. I just did that with Final Fantasy VII Remake. I played these games originally, but just to refresh yourself, go back in. I'm wondering if we could center a Last of Us Part 2 revisit around the show coming back, the HBO show, which will focus on this game, because I don't know the nature of when the third game might even come out. And I don't know that I have that much patience. And since you have to beat the game twice to get the platinum, what I would probably do is just beat it once, then leave it alone. And then when the third game comes out, maybe I'll go back and play it again and fulfill that and get that itch out of the way. So I think the answer, so Frida Bandito, is yeah, we'll do that, but I got to figure out when. It'll be next year.
Yeah, that's when the show comes back, I think.
And trust me, there's nothing I love more than talking about The Last of Us Part 2. That was a real pleasure. All right.
Such an old, like, it is astounding. It really bothers me how much I have said that I don't remember. I know that that's normal. I know that's like reasonable. Like, of course you would remember most of these stuff. It kind of bothers me because I'm trying to remember, like, what the hell did I say in that episode? Or like, what the hell did we talk about? Like, specifically, I don't even know if I remember my exact opinion on it, because it's been so long. But
well, so earlier this year when Rebirth came out, before Rebirth came out, I played Remake again, Final Fantasy VII Remake, for the first time since 2020 when it came out. And I love that game. And I think I did an episode. Were you on it? Did we do it together, or was Brad was on it? I don't remember what, but
I think I think so.
Yeah, and
I did replay it.
Yeah, and it's funny. I went back. We did an episode in 2020 about it, or maybe it was in early 2021, because I actually think I played it and then never got back. I moved when it came out, so then I never got back to it till later that year. People were making fun of it, and it was funny because I was saying on the show, like, I had to go back to the old episode we did, and I just skipped everything everyone else said and just listened to what I said about the game, because I was like, I don't remember what I said about this game at all. And then I almost had to take notes about the things that I had said, so that they lined up. And a lot of them were like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense." But dude, I'm with you. I don't remember anything. And is it the weed? I'm sure it's the weed partially, but really it is just the nature of things. When I was younger, see if you can identify with this. I don't know if you can, and if anyone out there can identify with this. I used to watch like People's Court or Court TV or something like that, right? And there'd be like some sort of interrogation or some sort of, questioning. And someone would ask, like, so this happened a few years ago, like, what did the person say? And they're like, I really don't remember. How many times did you go there? I don't know, once or twice. And I used to be like, once or twice? Like, how do you not know if you did something one time or two times, right? And now that I'm almost 40, and people are like, yeah, so where did you guys go? I'm like, I don't know. What did you guys talk about that time? I'm like, I really have no idea. Like, at some point you really do get old enough where you just don't remember. Like, there's a finite amount of space. And what I find so strange about it, so I've really made this connection, I think it's interesting, is that, when you hear a song, you haven't heard it in a long time, but you're familiar with it, and you just know all the lyrics, or you know exactly the way it goes, and you know the drums and all these kinds of different things, the guitar part. You're like, wow, man, I haven't heard this song in so long. Why do I know all this? It's because it's in your fucking brain.
Yes,
and you can't access it. That's the craziest part to me about all that stuff, is that you actually do know what you said. It's just, there's just no way.
It's just lost in a pile of just I think the thing is just like, there's so many I mean, a human life can only be so dynamic. You know what I mean? We do like we're repetitious. We're creatures of habit. We do kind of the same thing a bunch of times. Even when we do something unique, there's a pretty good chance that unique thing has various other similarities with like something else that you've done at least once or twice or three times. You know, so like there are times where people will ask me like, "Did I play that game?" And I'll say. Like intrinsically, I'll be like, yeah, I remember playing that game. And then I'll be like, wait, did I, wait, how long ago was this? And there are games that I thought I was sure that I never played, like Power Stone. Mm-hmm. And then I watch it and I'm like, oh, I played the shit out of this. I know this. So it's just, it's a mess, man.
It's hard for me to believe that it is a mess because I talked about it back with Wild Arms 2 specifically, which was a game I remember playing. Like I remember, I can see myself. It's as if you're dying and you're floating above your body. Like I can see, I had this blue, almost velvet-like chair, this old-timey chair that my dad gave me. That was like his grandparents, or whatever. That was in my room, and I would sit in the chair and play games. And I remember sitting in it, playing Wild Arms 2 with the strategy guide. A couple of years ago, Wild Arms 2 comes to PSN. I go and play it in Platinum for the first time. I don't remember one scene in that game. So somehow I remember the whole act of it. I know I beat it.
Yeah.
You know. I definitely know I did. And then I play it. I'm like, damn, I don't remember anything about this game. How is that possible?
Well, dude, I don't know if you can relate to this either, but like, or this specific thing, but I remember having dreams, like being excited for video games and then having dreams of playing the game that hadn't come out yet. And I have vivid memories of these games that don't exist, that aren't real. Like these aren't real developed games at all. I built like either my perfect game in my head, and I remember playing it and be like, oh, that was so fun. And it's like, that's not even fucking real. So there's like fake memories sitting in there too. Mm-hmm. It's being a person's tragic.
It's crazy, dude. I don't know about it. I don't know about being a person.
I don't know about it, man. I don't know about this.
I don't know that I like it. I don't know that I don't like it. It is what it is. All right. Sacred Symbols Plus episodes, by the way, over on Patreon, really great lately. They're always pretty great. Micah just recorded a mailbag that will go live this weekend. I had Rick Hogan to talk about another set of legal things and kind of accounting things and all sorts of weird stuff. So we talked about Concord specifically, and we're going to talk about Concord later, obviously, in this episode extensively, but we talked about Concord from the extent of like, I asked him, I'm like, how can you what's the legality behind forcing a refund on a customer? What is the legality of trying to get revenue down to zero so you can write it off? Can you do that after you release something? Like that's kind of the stuff we talk about, which is interesting. We also talk about the Black Myth Wukong exclusivity in quotes thing, which we're going to talk about later in the show as well, and a few other topics. So go check that out as well. I'm having the creative director and writer of Tales of Kinzera Zhao on. He was supposed to be on, and this episode was supposed to go live today, the day we're recording this, but he had to reschedule. So we'll do that soon. Recent episode of Sacred Cross Dukes went live. Wukong episode with Jaffe and Gene, I want to say, on that one. Episode about Game Informer and so on. So come check us out over there if you can. And merch at laststandmedia.store. T-shirts, sweatshirts, stickers, hats, etc. All shipped by Micah, my wife. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by DraftKings, an official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Learn more now on the DraftKings app and use the code SACRED when you sign up to receive $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 of your own. My friends, we are finally here within the NFL season. No more listening to endless podcasts and watching YouTube videos and absorbing old games to get your fix. The real thing has arrived. And a great way to complement a Sunday of football, or a Monday or a Thursday too, is with some responsible betting on DraftKings. And really, the world is your oyster in week 2. You've got some tantalizing upset possibilities, the Vikings and the Niners game, for instance, and a marquee big-time matchup in the late afternoon slot with the Bengals and Chiefs. But at DraftKings, you can bet on individual games and their outcomes, yes, but also on individual plays and stats and lots of other stuff too. And if the NFL isn't your thing, that's confusing, but also okay. DraftKings has options for fans of virtually any sport you can think of. It's time for you to score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use the code SACRED when you sign up. That's SACRED. Again, that's the sign-up code SACRED for new customers on the DraftKings app to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 of your own. And get 1 month of NFL Plus Premium too. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That's 467-396. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-879-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort of Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/FTBALL. NFL Plus Premium offer available only to new and former NFL Plus subscribers. Additional NFL Plus Premium terms at nfl.com/terms. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by BetterHelp, online therapy that's standing by to help you right now. Learn more at betterhelp.com/symbols. I'm a true believer in talk therapy. It's helped me at several junctures in my own life. And if you wanted to pursue therapy but weren't quite sure how to go about it, my friends at BetterHelp may just be of assistance. See, BetterHelp's entire therapy initiative revolves around access, convenience, and affordability. By tackling these three common obstacles all at once, BetterHelp spreads the field and allows more people than ever to speak to a mental health professional. So here's how it works. First, you go to betterhelp.com/symbols, where you'll be asked to take a brief online questionnaire. This will allow BetterHelp to hone in on what's troubling you, what kind of outcomes you're looking for, and so on. Then they set you up with a licensed therapist, and here's the best part. Your appointment is completely remote. You can conduct it via video, of course, but you can also opt for audio only or even go by text if you prefer. This means that you don't have to go out of your way and carve a bunch of time out of your schedule to travel to an office for an in-person visit. This also means that costs are kept manageable. Like I said earlier, access, convenience, and affordability. BetterHelp tackles it all. Whether you're struggling with anxiety or issues at work or with family or trouble in a relationship or just about anything else, it's important for you to understand that these are profoundly human problems and there's help out there for you. And I would know. I talked to someone in my own life and have on and off for more than 3 decades. Will you open your mind to therapy and how it might help you? Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/symbols today. That's BETTERHELP.com/SYMBOLS to get 10% off your first month of therapy sessions. Again, that's betterhelp.com/symbols today for accessible, convenient online therapy that can help you right now. Vincent Cashel wrote in and said, "What's up, boys? Just wanted to talk about my first run-in with a fellow Sacred Symbols listener in the wild. This past weekend, I was with my wife at Grand Central Market in LA. I was wearing my Sacred Symbols tee, standing in line to get an empanada when all of a sudden I hear 'stand down.' Turns out it was an employee of the establishment that I was also a fan of the show. It definitely made the experience more memorable, and the chicken jalapeno empanada was really good to boot. Shout out to you, good sir. Thanks again, boys, for creating the vibrant, fun community. I'm looking forward to meeting a bunch of other fans in San Diego. Vincent, we'll see you there. Thank you for writing in. Glad you got recognized. Shout out for putting that N with the tilde over it in your write-up of jalapeno.
Yeah.
Didn't need it, but appreciate that nonetheless. It's nice.
Yeah.
Happy for you guys to get recognized. Thank you for your support.
Grand Central Market's got a lot of good food. I haven't been there in a while, but
I don't think I ever went there.
I think last time I was there, I got to stand down. Now I think about it.
It's weird that became the thing, like the stand down thing, which is a real random reference. That's kind of like a bastardization. It's like, what was it? Dustin was in a video when he was on like a speedboat or I don't know what he was doing. Then he was trying to quote Trump and he just said stand down.
I don't know. I think that might have been after though. I think that might have been like, I think we said it on the show and then he made that video to kind of like reinforce it.
Oh,
but I'm not sure. It's been, again, this is what we were talking about. We can't remember our own lives enough to remember where this even came from. But I think that was like the Proud Boys stand by and what is it? Stand by,
stand down, stand down and stand by or whatever.
I need my little racist friends to stand by. That would be so nice.
That would be. All right, let's get into topics of discussion, stretch our legs, then we'll get into just a few news items. There's really not very much to talk about this week, except for one major news item. So we'll get to that shortly. But let's go through a few things here first. Everything Mraz wrote in, as many people did, said, "Hey boys, just wanted to say one thing. Is Colin a racist? Mistaking Outkast for Black Eyed Peas is crazy." Now, a lot of you wrote in about this. And a lot of you had something to say about this. I thought it was really funny. Micah, I think when the show went live, I'm not great at looking at comments recently. So she was like, "Did you see the thing, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize that. But so then I went and looked, and I'm like, wow, I understand making the mistake, but I didn't know people were so passionate about Outkast and Black Eyed Peas, because and that insulting one for the or mistaking one for the other would be so insulting, specifically because I didn't know that Outkast was considered like a very serious group compared to Black Eyed Peas, which is considered more of a poppy group or whatever. I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret. They're both pretty much the same thing. But nonetheless, crazy. Okay, fine. Outkast, different than Black Eyed Peas. I totally respect. And I know this. This is the thing that was weird about it, is that there's a lot I don't know, and I don't listen to like poppy hip hop music. So like I wouldn't necessarily know anything about it. But this really did come from my era. I was introduced to Black Eyed Peas specifically, and the real Black Eyed Peas specifically pre-Fergie, because they're mentioned in 311's 1999 song "Come Original," and they're mentioned in that as well. So I was like, who are these guys? Because they mentioned like Ronnie Size and a couple other things, and things I never knew.
Yeah.
So it was at that time that I familiarized with myself with them, and then I know that in the 2000s they kind of had a resurgence with "Let's Get It Started," and that's Black Eyed Peas with Fergie. And I know Outkast is the Miss Jackson group, and that was what I was really talking about. I don't know why I got them mixed up. Couldn't tell you why. Could it be? And by the way, I knew someone was going to tell me that I was racist, which was, and I know it's a joke, but I was surprised that more people didn't say it, because that was the most obvious thing, right? Is that, oh, Colin is just getting two groups of black people mixed up, you know? And I wanted to make the joke. It's like, oh yeah, all black people look the same to me. When Micah's mom comes over the house, I'm like, it's Diana Ross. You know, I can't believe it.
That's insane. It's Diana Ross. No, yeah, like, dude, when we were having that conversation, I remember you said, I can't remember how it's, but you said something like, and we were talking about Outkast, and you were naming Outkast songs accurately, and I was like, oh yeah, he knows Outkast. And then you were like, yeah, and that was pre-Fergie.
Yeah, that was right. That's what I had.
And then I had one of these, because I have this mentality where like I'm always kind of waiting for the moment that I can catch myself going insane. You know what I mean? Where I'm waiting for the moment where like either my world is shattered or something that I thought I knew turns out to be completely incorrect. And I knew, I was 99.9% certain Fergie was never in Outkast. But you were so confident in your delivery that like I was like, well, am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean that's confidence man shit.
Yeah, it is. It worked. It totally, like, you genuinely stunned me, and I was just like confused.
I'm sorry about that. It's my fault.
It's all right.
You know, and
it was funny.
Yeah, it is a funny moment. It's more annoying because it's not annoying. I don't actually really give a shit, because I do fundamentally know the difference, but I guess I don't know anything apart from, like, I couldn't tell you an Outkast song from the last 25 years. I couldn't tell you, or maybe 22 or 23 years. I couldn't tell you a Black Eyed Peas song other than that "Let's Get It Started" song.
Yeah,
which, by the way, I hate that song. Just wanted to know that I hate it.
Do you like what about the original one?
There's an original "Let's Get It Started."
Yeah, it's
or
called
Let's Get Retarded. Yeah. That's better, but I still don't like it. You know, it's kind of like what was that guy that heavyset black guy's name? Is it CeeLo Green? He had a song, right? That was like fundamentally edited. I can't remember what it was.
Oh,
and
was it
I only heard it years later, where I was like, wait a minute, what? Like that was what he actually says. God, I wish I could remember what it was. You know what I'm talking about?
I think he has a song that's just like "fuck you." I think.
Right. But that's what it was. But it's something else on the radio, and that's all I ever heard it. And then when I heard the song later, I was like, "Oh, interesting." Let's get retarded in here.
That was such a big song at that time, man.
It was. It really was. I hated it. I was in college.
But yeah, dude, like it threw me off because here's the thing about you. It's like I feel like you know more about like who, like, individual, like the makeup of music groups. Like, to me, I hear songs, I listen, I recognize like, oh, that's this band. But like there are iconic music videos to a lot of songs that like I just have never seen because I just didn't care to look them up. I don't know who's in what band or who's in what outfit at all. And so I was like, he must know.
No, yeah, no, I just don't trust me on anything that's not rock related with that stuff. Like you really don't want to trust me. By the way, this is something Ramon was here a few weeks ago, my best friend. And he showed me this, and then I went and found a longer video of this. Have you seen the stuff with? Do you know who Frankie Valli is? Like the Four Seasons?
No.
Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons, like walk like a man, talk like a man. Yeah. And so like a bunch of songs, and then later they did some disco-esque, like December 1963 and all that kind of stuff. He's in his 90s, Frankie Valli. The Four Seasons were a band, like it was 4 singers. And they're like a bunch of young people now. But Frankie Valli is touring right now.
Quartet, yeah.
Right. And dude, you have got to see the videos of him on stage. It is so fucking funny. The video that I found, or that he showed me, was called "Is Frankie Valli Okay?" And it's just stitching together all of these different things of him singing these songs. And you're going to love it. You're going to fucking love it. I'm actually surprised that I haven't sent it to you already because it's so funny.
I'll put this to my watch later.
When we take a break, I'll send it to you so you can see it.
I have it. I'm going to add it to my watch later.
Yeah. Oh my God. Dude, it's so funny because it's so ridiculous. And when you hear the music and what he looks like, oh my God, I love it. Frankie Valli. Shout out to you, Frankie Valli.
Even just like on mute, it looks crazy because he's just so still compared to everybody else.
But you have the music that's being played and the things he's supposed to be singing that he's clearly not singing. You know, it's so good. It's so good because for people that don't know the Four Seasons, it was like a lot of it was like falsetto and that very 50s and 60s style, and it's fucking sick. You know,
yeah.
I mean, there's like a million awesome songs in that era like that.
Yeah. Oh,
dude, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm closing some of these tabs, and I just wanted to note. Yeah, so I wasn't on the Final Fantasy VII remake. It was you, Brad, Gene, and Hogue.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, that was 4 months ago.
Oh, and Hogue.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay. I did want to say this. I don't know if I ever told this story somewhere before, but all this talk about Outkast just reminds me of the only memory I have regarding Outkast. Really, like the Miss Jackson era Outkast. Mm-hmm. My friend Brian on Long Island has ponds, and like it's like, you know, an island. It has like all these little inlets and like pond and little lakes and stuff like that. And there's a place called Swan Lake, which is just a small roadside pond of sorts, pretty big. And it would freeze in most winters, and we play hockey on it. My friend lived like his backyard went up to it. It was really dope. You could just walk. So, you know, you don't want to wear your skates on hard surfaces. You want to wear them on like foam and stuff like that before you get on the ice. So, but he lived on, we just would walk on his grass and go. It was fucking awesome. I'm like, I can't believe you live like this. This is so cool. And we had like a boombox with us. This was, I don't know, 2000, maybe something like that. I don't remember exactly when that came out. It was around there. And we had this stereo on that we brought out, and someone had that album. So we would listen to that album on repeat and just play hockey. And at some point, my friend Brian decided to like throw, there was a road next to it, and he threw a snowball at a car that was coming by. Not a good thing to do. I don't know why. I don't really remember the nature of it. The guy stops. There's this Outkast album playing, and this guy proceeds to get out of his car and get into a literal fist fight with my friend Brian, who's like 17 years old, and that Outkast record's playing in the background, and I will never forget that as long as I live.
I mean, you know, that's a strange backing track, I think, for a violent altercation. Is any Outkast song, really?
My friend Brian, he's a cop. So
he's a cop. That's wild.
So there's that.
Yeah, there is that.
All those guys in that group, because there was like a whole friend group that I like kind of was, they were like a hockey people. They were all Rangers fans, which was kind of shitty. But we would play hockey together, and we played roller hockey, went to school together and all the rest. And they were all these like Ranger fans, but they all became like either cops or like work in that field. They went to like John Jay and all these different places. Do you ever know anyone that went to John Jay? That's apparently a pretty good school in the city. I don't know very much about it. It's like criminal justice.
Yeah, I think I have family members who went to John Jay. I went to a high school. I went to John Jay High School.
Oh, interesting.
Funny.
Well, he's a big deal in those parts. You know?
Yeah, he's certainly our mascot was the Patriots or something or like something like that or like, I don't even know. But the head was terrifying because it was just an old school like white person, but like cartoonized into like this big. I don't know. But the whole mascot culture is weird. I don't really understand. That was one of the earliest memories that I have of sports in general. That really confused me. Where like, why do they need this like clown ostensibly?
It's weird. I don't like the whole. It's fine. I don't like the whole cheerleader culture more than anything, especially in pro sport, in like high school and college, like whatever. But in pro sports, I find it weird when teams have like cheerleaders and stuff. Like I don't. In my high school, I went to Bellport High School on Long Island. We were the Clippers, which was a ship, or an anchor logo, which is kind of cool, except for our football team, which is really a great team. It's like the pride of our school. They are called the Junkyard Dogs. And they have a guy that dresses up in an outfit of a junkyard dog and does like flips and shit like that all over the place. So yeah, it's pretty funny.
Have you seen these videos of this? I think it's like a Japanese. I don't know if it's a mascot for like a brand or whatever, but it's like Chitlin or Chilton or something like that.
I don't know.
It's this guy dressing like a cat.
Oh yeah. I see the ads on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck that's all about.
Yeah. I don't know either, but like I've seen videos of that guy like careening off of buildings and like just like falling in like really clearly like very like clearly damaging ways. And I'm like wondering, I don't know what they're advertising. I don't know what he's representative of. I don't know if there's multiple chitlins or whatever the hell.
Right.
Like if like maybe like they put a guy in the suit, they throw him off, they make him do something crazy. He dies from his injuries 2 days later.
It's like the Blue Man Group. It's actually a bunch of people.
It's like Air Bud.
Air Bud, right.
Yeah.
It's so funny. I have not even verbalized or said anything about that whole cat thing or whatever that thing is to anyone. Because it's like a fever dream.
Right.
Because it's just this thing. And I'm loath to, I used to really aggressively block like a lot of shit on Twitter. Not people that wanted to talk or even people being mean, but brands. I would block like just tons of brands, anything that advertised to me. And then I read that's really bad for your algorithm, like algorithmically, and it's bad for your reach. Like you get, because all that stuff leaked about Twitter and you get like these plus and minus points for all the different things that you do. And if you block a ton of things, you get like a ton of minus points. So I just unblocked everything. So now I see it all, one thing I was blocking a lot of was just fantasy football betting stuff or whatever, just because I don't mind any of that stuff. I play fantasy football and betting on football is fun. I don't do it unless I'm in person in Vegas, but it was just like becoming too overwhelming. It's like all I was seeing,
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, Crab Dude 5000 wrote in, said, "Hi there, Super Slip Boys. This write-in is mostly for Chris and concerns his upcoming Andre 3000 show." Because you said you were seeing him last week.
Yeah.
Chris, I just want you to know that Mr. 3000, not Bernie Mac, will be performing any Outkast songs as he is currently promoting his ambient album. Please enjoy his set of wonderful ambient works. I hope you find it relaxing, enthralling, and of course, entertaining. Be well, gentlemen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I know this. A lot of people were like, I hope Chris isn't expecting to hear Outkast songs. Like, and it's like, no, I know. I understand what this is. Andre 3000 is a strange fellow, and I remember hearing a little bit of this weird ambient flute music that he was doing, and the fact that he's having a show for it is fascinating to me. Like I don't know what a flute concert looks like, so I'm just curious to go and see it.
You're about to.
It's tonight, I'm pretty sure. So it'll be an interesting day.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck surviving the mosh pit at the flute concert.
This one just came in right before we started recording, but it's perfect. So I don't think you've even seen it because it wouldn't have been in the document for you, and you're going to love it. Ben Stewart wrote in and said, "Hello, CC. I hope all is well. This one is for your son, Chris. With your recent interest in the lynching of exotic animals, I would like to point out a little tale from the northeast of England. During the Napoleonic Wars, a French shipwreck was spotted off the coast of Hartlepool. When the wreckage came ashore, the locals rushed down to the beach to find the only survivor was the ship's mascot, a monkey. With the locals so nervous of a French invasion and many of the populace neither meeting a Frenchman nor a monkey, they assumed the monkey to be the former. The monkey was hanged for being a French spy, and to this day, the local people of Hartlepool are referred to as monkey hangers. Rumor has it the monkey was in full French uniform when he perished. Are you sure you want to have a live show in this mad country?
That's amazing. That's beautiful, man. The humankind is so strange. We have so many insane stories like this that it's just like you'd never really run out. You know, this is only the things that we know about that have been like documented for historical purposes. Like, who knows how many people, like in just backwoods towns, like I don't even know, like hung like a freaky looking deer for being a chupacabra or something.
Right,
you
right.
know what I mean? Like, no, I'm fascinated by this entire thing. I can't remember if I brought this up. Was this on? This is on one of the I don't think this is on the constellation that I hosted, but this is, I think.
No, it was the one you and I did it together. That it was the one last one I recorded a few weeks ago, maybe. I looked up Hartlepool. It's HARTLEPOOL, and then I put space M in Google. Hartlepool male, Hartlepool monkey hangers, Hartlepool museum, Hartlepool map, Hartlepool monkey statue.
Oh man, they built a statue for it too?
I guess so. Monkey hanger is a colloquial, this is on Wikipedia, monkey hanger is a colloquial nickname by which people from the town of Hartlepool in County Durham, England are sometimes known. And there is a statue here, I'm going to send it to you in the chat here. There you go. There is indeed a statue of the monkey.
It's such an underwhelming statue. That might as well not even be there. That's like almost an insult to the monkey.
There's a monkey song, apparently. There's a whole part of the Wikipedia with a song about the monkey.
I don't need to hear that. I don't need that in my life.
Yeah. Another monkey statue. There's a second one.
Is it better?
It's different. It's like more realistic. The first one, like on the top of the Wikipedia page, is a little more artistic, in my opinion. The second one is bigger and it looks more like a monkey.
That's good. At least they got him.
They got him.
They got him.
Let's see here. Lost Prophets Memorial Daycare Center wrote in. That's an awful name, by the way.
Oh, no.
Boys, I, like many others, want to talk about Concord. And then in his write-in, he had a whole space. And then he said grape jelly. And how it shouldn't be the default sandwich pairing with peanut butter. That honor belongs to strawberry. Even better if you go for jam instead. What do you guys think? Is Concord grape jelly your favorite peanut butter accompaniment? Any other combos you like? Honey is pretty good. Banana obviously as well. And surprisingly, bread and butter pickle slices. Ugh. My dad likes to make peanut butter and butter sandwiches, but I was never into that. Yeah, I learned about that in New England. I'm not into that either. The name is just insane.
It's wild. That actually is probably the first name that I've ever read that's left me like genuinely winded or like speechless.
Right, like you need to
like that's dark and clever in a way that I don't know how to feel about it exactly.
I don't either. That's why I wanted to use it. It's so mysterious and strange and almost everyone has a line.
Right? Yeah. That's poking up to it. That's peering over it a little bit.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not a peanut butter. I'm not a jelly. I'm not a dessert sandwich person. You know, like I'm not really big on jellies and jams and peanut butter. Like I'm pretty sure the most I've ever had peanut butter in my life is probably like cumulatively, it's probably like in protein shakes and then Reese's. You know what I mean? But like as a sandwich, like I don't know. Like there's something about, I think, sandwich bread, like the loaves and just the slices that lend themselves to me to like savory sandwiches, and putting like ostensibly candy in them or like on them just feels kind of strange. I can't do it. I'll eat an ice cream sandwich with like, you know, a cookie and like ice cream in the middle. That's fine. You know, that's acceptable. But the two slices of like Wonder Bread, and then, I mean, Wonder Bread is ostensibly candy as well, it's apparently, but that's just too much for me personally.
Yeah, you're right about the whole candy thing, where like jelly is weird as a food that is introduced to you during the nurture era of your upbringing, where it just becomes normalized because it's like, oh yeah, this is what we eat in the United States.
Yeah.
We have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Now, I'm not a hater. I fucking love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but I found his and I don't want to say the name again because it's too long and it's too ridiculous. Yeah. But let's say it's his assertion that strawberry jelly is the superior one. Strawberry jelly sucks. Concord grape jelly is the best that's ever been. And I know you wanted to write in about this to joke about the Concord thing and make your little joke, and you did, but don't besmirch. Yeah. Specifically Welch's Concord grape jelly, which is so good. And I don't like jam. Like the Welch's jars of jelly and jam look somewhat similar. Back in the day, it used to be like just a slight color difference on the label. And we bought jam on accident a few times, and I was like, ugh.
What's the difference between jelly and jam exactly?
Jam is like a spread. Jelly is like the globular. You spread it, but it's like it's got a totally different texture. Jam is more like a really smooth experience. And I'm just not into that. I don't like a lot of these preserves and a lot of these things you guys got going on out there. Just give me the old-fashioned Concord grape jelly, and I'm good with it. I love it. So let's not get too carried away. There are other things you can put on peanut butter sandwiches that are good, including just peanut butter and just having a peanut butter sandwich. I also eat an enormous amount of peanut butter just out of the jar. I'll just be honest with you.
Oh, like, yeah.
Just on every few days, I'm eating peanut butter out of the jar, at least. So
everybody has that thing, I think, that they just kind of eat out of the jar, and it's okay. I'm like that with olives, and people think that's strange. But like I really like manzanilla, specifically like the ones with like the pimento pepper in the middle. Gobble those things up, dude.
How did they get the pepper in there? Did they do it by hand? Seems like a lot of labor, you know?
Yeah, they have a little pepper popper employed at Goya to just shove peppers into olives.
A little Oompa Loompa that never leaves. All right. Jose Mendoza wrote in and said, hey, man, Colin, with the NFL season right around the corner, can you name the NFL teams that you think will win their divisions? Chris, can you name 8 NFL teams in general? I'll hang up and listen now. You could, I think.
I'm not confident that I can. Like, I actually because I read the document obviously before, like the night before as well, just to brush up before I wake up in the morning and do the show. And I thought about like, oh, should I study for this question? But I was like, that'd be inauthentic. So like, I didn't look up anything. All I know is I know the Patriots. I know the Giants. I think the Steelers are real.
Yeah, that's a team. Yeah,
but I think genuinely, I'm not exaggerating. That's probably like the extent of it that I know off the top of my head.
Interesting. You know the Jets.
Oh yeah, the Jets. I'm aware of the Jets. Like I can't summon this knowledge.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of knowledge that I have locked away that is just like inaccessible, unfortunately. And this is one of those things where it's like I'm aware that the Jets exist, and I'm pretty confident that they're a football team.
Yeah. Fair enough.
I'm just it goes into what I was talking about earlier, but with the Fergie thing, is that like I'm waiting for the moment where like I'm just completely wrong about something that I fundamentally understood to be true. So like I'm 99% confident about most of the things that I think I know, but I always leave that 1% chance open that like maybe I might be hallucinating all this, and I might be in a straitjacket in a padded room. Who the fuck knows?
Right. It's like the story I told back in the day about how I was positive latitude was longitude and longitude was latitude. Right. And then went through my entire life like that. Not that was useful. It's not like I'm a sailor or something, so it didn't really come up. All right. So to answer your question, let's see. So AFC East, I think the Jets will win the AFC East. AFC North, Ravens. AFC South, Texans. AFC West, Chiefs. NFC East, Eagles. NFC South, Bucks, maybe the Falcons, but I think the Bucks. NFC North, Lions. NFC West, Niners. Yeah, that will be the winners of the conferences or the divisions. I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. As I was saying, I part of the reason I'm coming back so quickly from California is because I don't want to miss football. So that's just the way it's got to go. Timothy Bryant wrote in, this is a little bit of a disturbing piece of information for you. Are you ready?
Oh, man.
Says, hey, CNC Music Factory, I just wanted to give you guys some info this week that I know you will love, especially Chris. I found out that the foam in Foamstars is actually body secretion from the Foamstars themselves. I couldn't believe the words that entered my ear holes, so I had to search it up, and sure enough, there's an Otaku article sort of explaining that this is in fact the case. From their article, quote, based on Foamstars limited story mode, loading screen tips, and in-game dialogue, it appears that the foam is, in fact, bodily fluid produced by the game's protagonists, end quote. I just want to know how this makes you both feel. Have a wonderful foam-filled day. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I feel itchy. I don't know why. That feels like something that would be front and center in some way, if it was to be there at all. You know what I mean? That's so disgusting and strange that you would imagine that this would be like something that would be like one of the prime things that people know about this. I'm surprised I didn't know about this just based on just how many people were joking about that game when it was like first announced, and how this would have obviously leaned into that, or how this would have made for pretty good material. But none? This is the first time hearing about it? Like many, 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 many months after it's out, and like well after anybody's really talking about it? It's concerning. But I mean, this doesn't make me feel better. I will say that. It makes me feel better about not playing it, I will say. You know? Yeah,
it's I don't like that.
Is it like hooked? Are the guns that they're shooting foam out of like hooked into their like backs or something? Like what's going on? Like now I'm just curious about like how like these characters, because I guess I've only like really I've only done like a cursory glance of these characters, so I've never really like studied them in depth.
Yeah,
but like
I'm looking at them now.
But how would they get body fluids?
Yeah, I don't
these just look like normal people. They don't. How are they doing that?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
This game's got a. If you Google search like the images of this game, it's like there's a goonery kind of vibe to a lot of this.
Yeah, there's something. The game at least has a pretty distinct look.
Yeah,
which is cool. I give it that. But I don't need you guys to be foaming out of your orifices on my behalf.
Yeah. No foaming orifices on my watch.
Yeah, not on my watch. All right. Papa Fridge wrote in and said, hey, boys, want to write in with a correction or maybe just a genuine question? Am I going crazy, or have the thumbnails for the main show been using the Sacred Symbols Plus logo for the past couple of weeks? I only asked because it was like 200. It was episode 200 of Sacred Plus when I realized the plus sign inside the circle of the Sacred logo. But lately I've been noticing the plus in the main show logo. So am I nuts, or did you all lose the JPEG of the main Sacred logo? Feel free to tell me or ignore me if I'm nuts. Cheers. No, we didn't. This is a consequence of Dustin being gone. Because little things like this, it's not a big deal. We corrected it on the back end when we noticed this, but this is something that's just gotten by the goalie because not even our own employees have recognized that the logos are different. Because I asked, I think I asked Ben, I'm like, you guys had never noticed that the logos were different or whatever, because they don't make the art, they don't do anything with it. But now because Dustin's gone, his tasks are being split amongst them. And we have our friend of the show, Jimmy Champagne, fellow YouTuber. Well, it's not a fellow YouTuber because I don't really consider myself a YouTuber. I'm on YouTube,
right?
Though, because I don't play the game. I'm not good at it. I'm just kind of here. I just put things up on it because this is where people are. Remember, the first 100 episodes of the show were all just audio only on YouTube, and people still sat here and fucking listened to it.
Yeah, this is the JPEG of the thumbnail,
right? And it would slowly float across your screen, so that it would it would never I would take on the Premiere timeline. If the show was like 3 hours, I would take an image of like the thumbnail art, and then I would start it in the bottom left corner and then drag it all the way across the timeline to the right at the end so that it would just slowly have gone to the far other side by the time the show ends. And that was all that it was. I don't know why I felt like that was something I want. It was just, I was like, I just don't want to do video anymore, you know? And then I realized you can't really, you could, but it's stupid not to. A third of the human population is a monthly active user on YouTube. A third.
Isn't that insane? That's like, no, that's existential. I can't.
It's crazy. I mean, there's no other place you should possibly be more than that, except for maybe podcasts, but
yeah,
you gotta be on YouTube, you know?
Yeah, even if it's completely broken and it never works properly ever.
And no one understands it and you can't talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And they just make capricious and arbitrary decisions about everything.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like YouTube reminds me of like the TSA in some way, where it's just like, you can't bring a knife onto an airplane, but I have by accident. So like, I don't really understand. Like sometimes we'll have a snark tank where it'll open with like the most heinous shit ever. Like just Sweeney or Derek saying the most like absurd shit possible. And it'll be green dollar signed. And then there's other ones where like the crazy shit doesn't happen until an hour in, and that one's like, oh, yellow. It's like, okay, I guess. No rhyme or reason to any of this.
Yeah, it sucks. I hate it. It would be cool on YouTube if you could even pay a fee, like a subscription fee, to just be like, can I talk to someone real when I have a problem for $19.99 a month or something? You know,
I would pay that. I would absolutely pay that.
It's just surprising that someone of your size and stature too doesn't just have access to Patreon's credit. Not that Patreon's as big as YouTube, obviously it's not. But when you get to a certain size, they're all over you. You know, like, and that's good. There's no problem.
Yeah, I think I know enough people that I probably could if I cared, but I haven't been posting lately. So for me, it's just like when I post again, I'll maybe open up those avenues. But like it's more tedious than it should be, or more annoying than it needs to be, for sure.
So no, Papa Fridge and others that have noticed this, you're right. That's exactly what happened. The logos have been the assets had just been moved around. No one noticed the difference, and that's okay. We have people filling in for us valiantly, and we appreciate them. Macro wrote in and said, "Hey there, CM squared with their D cut off. Oof. I'm one of the Star Wars Outlaws early players who got the ominous warning email from Ubisoft, but I got the email late, and I was 10 hours deep, so I decided to raw dog it with my pre-patch save after the update. I have yet to encounter any bugs, progression blocking, or otherwise, so who the hell knows what's going on? Also, I felt like Colin would enjoy knowing that my lifelong doctor is called Dr. Wiley. I'll hang up now and listen." Thank you. It's W-Y-L-I-E, so different Wiley, of course. But yeah, I love that. I wonder if he knows. Has anyone ever said anything to him? Probably not. But maybe. I would hope someone did at some point. Curious if you're Macro, you got to keep in touch. I wonder if you'll get through the whole game and if they were lying about that progression being blocked or whatever.
What? That would be so crazy. Why would they do that?
I don't know, because the thing I was thinking about with this is that what if you're just not online? What if you're just playing the game offline off of a disc? Can you do that version 1.0? I would assume. So like, you're really going to fuck the game up for everyone, even if they don't know, and then they're going to encounter the progression block. Like, I guess, I don't know. Something about this doesn't add up. I think there's more to this than meets the eye. And by the way, I didn't include it in this because I'm sick of talking about financials for now, especially if they're not Sony's, because it just gets a little too granular. Where do you draw the line? But Ubisoft's financials are out, or there was an interesting Reuters article about their performance specifically on the market, and they're in bad shape. Their stock's down 30% this year, which is catastrophic. Yeah. And Star Wars Outlaws apparently is not selling well, and X Defiant is apparently dying too. So interesting times over there. Ubisoft is very bloated. Like, I have no idea how they employ 20 something thousand people. It's like, I don't know.
That is outrageous. Especially for the output. Like, the output that doesn't make any sense to me that they're that big, and the type of games that they make are of that quality. Because then they make they are Skull and Bones, right?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
That was Ubisoft Singapore, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm glad you wrote in about that because I wasn't sure about if anyone was going to try to do it. I'd be curious to know if you can beat it without updating the game. And if so, then they're lying. and then it really gets interesting,
Or they just overcorrected, and they were like, hey, they're like, maybe there's like a 20% chance that like something crazy happens, and they're like, we should just send an email to everybody just to cover our bases. But either way, man, I'm kind of with you where like I feel like it's just such a strange, like there must be more to this than just like the headline.
I was supposed to read this, by the way, last week. It's on my desk here, and I'm going to read it now. Micah sent me this. Someone had bought merch for her husband's birthday and then wanted to have a little message from the show. So I want to do this. It's just a short thing. Dear Matthew, it says, thank you for being such a loving, caring, and supportive husband. Wishing you an amazing birthday, belated now, and many healthy years ahead. Love you forever. Your wife, Ty. So there you go. Happy birthday to you. Happy belated birthday to you, Matthew. I'm sorry I didn't read that last week. I forgot. I printed it out even to remember, but I didn't. Now I'm going to put it in the shredder for no reason. Dude, I love the paper shredder. Love it.
It's great. I gotta get one.
They're really nice. Yeah. It's a nice little thing. You shred and everything. It's just an easy way to just get rid of paper.
Yeah, I just kind of like I tear it up as best I can, or if I don't feel like doing it, I just put it in a box. So like I have like a big box of like old paper that I have like no real use for, but I don't got a paper shredder yet. So.
Yeah, I'm glad that we don't live in the era of like lots of paper anymore, like just digital e-bills and all that kind of stuff. Because it's just so much. When I first started working at IGN in 2007, I got my check. They did have direct deposit, and I did that, but you would get like something in the mail with just your pay stub or whatever. And I saved every pay stub I ever had the entire time I was there. And then when I left, I'm like, why do I have all these?
Yeah,
like you just don't need to keep. There's just so much shit out there, so much data. So I'm glad to fucking shred it up personally.
Yeah.
All right. A few pieces of news here. 3 of these 4 pieces of news are related to each other. I guess we can just talk about them all together in some sense. Mm-hmm. And it's just part of the theme of this year in the games industry. So basically, layoffs have hit 3 different companies, and one of the companies has been shut down. And we could talk about them all individually if we'd like, but Ballistic Moon, which is the British studio making the Until Dawn remake, has already started laying people off before the game's even out. The game must be gold at this point, and that's too bad. So we can get into what they had to say. And then layoffs also hit Rocksteady. This isn't a huge surprise, although they're probably feeling a little better because Suicide Squad was a big L for them, but Suicide Squad makes Concord, or Concord makes Suicide Squad, I guess I should say, look like a smash hit, granted on how it did. So they had layoffs. That's not a huge surprise. The biggest shitty one of all, and this has not been widely reported, but it comes from Takashi Mochizuki, who is the Bloomberg video game correspondent in Japan, and then Wario64 had kind of proliferated this on Twitter, that Ouka Studios, O-U-K-A, that is owned by NetEase, the Chinese conglomerate, is being basically shut down. And that happened the day that their game, the Square Enix published Visions of Mana, was released. So that's rough. Like, you don't even get any time at all before they just gut your entire studio. There has been some chatter in recent weeks about how some of these Chinese companies are looking at Western and Japanese console development a little more warily. Although the acquisition of a studio like Tango into one of these groups. Oh no, I guess that wasn't. Was that who bought Tango?
Tango was. Hold on, let me look it up for you.
Yeah. Anyway, so these 3 things happened all within a few days of each other. It's sad news. The Ballistic Moon,
Crafton.
Oh, so South Korean. Ballistic Moon did release a statement on LinkedIn. It said, quote, as the games industry continues to face complex challenges, we at Ballistic Moon are confronted with some difficult realities. It is with deep regret and a heavy heart that we must make the tough decision to significantly scale down our team to secure the future of our studio. This comes after our development of Until Dawn for PS5 and PC. We want to express our sincere gratitude to every member for their hard work, dedication, and unwavering commitment to Ballistic Moon. Saying goodbye to such talented and passionate group of people is incredibly difficult, and we are profoundly sorry for the impact this restructuring will have on our employees and their families. This is an interesting part here. This is the end. As we navigate this transition, Ballistic Moon remains focused on supporting the launch of Until Dawn and is committed to exploring new opportunities and collaborations for the future. So they're alive. They're just scaled down. For people that don't know Ballistic Moon, they have not put out a game yet. They were founded by people that worked at Supermassive, hence the connectivity to Until Dawn and their ability to work on that game, which is a Sony-owned IP, of course. So there's that. And then the Rocksteady stuff, apparently, this comes from Eurogamer, and apparently a lot of it is the QA department, which was basically cut in half. Not a huge surprise there, considering there's not going to be very much to QA for a while, probably. And what will be QA'd will be for a waning Justice League game as they move on to whatever's next for them. And then, yeah, there's the Outkast Studio stuff. That's just rough. Because Visions of Mana, by many accounts, is great. And it looks really good. So sad to see that. Any comments on these layoffs? It's just, I haven't gotten to the layoff tracker actually in a while. But any comments?
I wonder if it's better. No, I think for me to they go down somehow. The NetEase one is the most egregious one to me. I'm just like, that to me just seems like on a human level, it's just like, oh man, dude, like that's the day of your release. Ideally should be like a day of, at the very least, celebration, you know, just like, hey, we did this. Hey, finally, we got to the finish line and we put out something that's, you know, that looks great, that plays well. Yay. And so for like in that 24-hour period to just be shut down is pretty fucking ruthless. I don't know. I feel bad for everybody affected by all of these, but like them especially, because it didn't seem telegraphed at all.
We'll talk about a little bit about this with Concord and kind of people, you know, layoffs and people kind of losing their jobs and all the rest. It's like it's deeply sad when it happens in all industries, but there is something unusually uncertain about a lot of video games that makes it such that you really, even if you make a great game, it's maybe not enough. And if you're making it in a second party capacity or a third party capacity for a publisher, then you're really not protected because they just want the product. They don't really give a shit about the future. This is what I mean. It's clear that Sony's not interested in Ballistic Moon, right? We were talking about like, would they maybe want to buy these guys if it worked out and put them on something else? Clearly not.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know, man. It's a bummer. By the way, the tracker has it at 11,540 layoffs this year so far, which is an all-time high.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, I look at an industry that is constantly dealing with studio closures and constantly dealing with layoffs at such an astounding rate, and I can't help but wonder, like, why are you like this? For it to be this ubiquitous, feels to me like it's just a universal mismanagement about either expectations or just finance. It's like, okay, well, what are you doing? Like, what is this industry doing that so many people are losing their jobs and it is just such an inherently unstable place? Because that's not healthy. You know, like you're either, I don't know what you're doing. Either you're spending way too much money and expecting way too much in return, or you're not allocating your resources properly. Like, why do you need to spend as much money as you're spending if it means you're going to just cut everything in like a year? Like, there seems to be like a fundamental, like, I don't know, like a blight of mismanagement in the industry right now.
I think there's just a real aggression in with too much money too much money infused into too many studios chasing too many projects with too few players available to support it all. This collapse in some sense is almost, it's necessary. It sucks because it affects real people and real games and real teams, and hopefully other, the talented and willing amongst these different layoffs find their way to new projects and all that. I'm not saying any of that, of course, but it's just the reality of the situation that this is a reflection of the market. This wouldn't be happening if these games were selling. If these games were selling, this wouldn't happen. And and by the way, the 11,540 number doesn't include an enormous number of question marks on this chart of where the numbers are unknown, of how many people. Like, we don't know Ready at Dawn's head count. So when Ready at Dawn went down, it's like, who knows? Like, we don't actually know how many people were laid off. So the 11,540 number is only the numbers that can be quantified, which makes it even crazier. But I just think there's nothing you can do about it. This is like, what is it? A rock and or an unmovable object and an unstoppable force or whatever. Like, there's just you have this notion of lots of different projects and chasing them, and the crazy thing is that a game being good, and this is the case with Concord, a game being good is not sufficient.
Right.
That was sufficient at one point. Like, I would say into the PS2 era, maybe even the PS3 era, being good was sufficient to get requisite attention because the money spent on games was lower. The amount you had to sell, if you sold 1 million copies, that was huge on PS1, PS2, PS3, because you were spending a few $1 million on your game. Maybe when a game like, at the most, as I've said many times, Twisted Metal made for under $500,000, right? Mm-hmm. But when Final Fantasy VII, I think, cost $25 million, everyone was like, whoa. And that $25 million is the burn rate of Naughty Dog in probably 6 months. Like, so,
right.
To me, I just look at that and I'm like, yeah, man, things are different. Now the projects have to change. You have to be good. You have to be great. And you have to be differentiated. And the purging will continue, unfortunately. It's not going to get any better. It's just going to get worse. Because as games hit the market, then they'll perform or they won't. And then the studio is going to rise or not. It reminds me a little bit of the Alone in the Dark reimagining from that Studio Pieces. It's like, yeah, that game kind of just came out, farted, they're gone. And I think that's actually going to happen repeatedly until we find this new equilibrium. If we ever do, it might just be like lots of destruction constantly. But
probably,
yeah,
in all likelihood.
The only other piece of small news before we get into what we're playing is about this kind of just went under the radar. I understand why, though. I mean, it's not like that exciting, but it's worth noting is that Harry Potter is returning not only with Quidditch Champions, which again is on PlayStation Plus for all PlayStation Plus subscribers as we speak, but there will be a Lego Harry Potter collection. And this is coming very soon. It will launch October 8th and it will be on PlayStation 5. So this is a Traveler's Tale game. So people might remember Lego Harry Potter was split into two. There was 2010's Lego Harry Potter years 1 through 4 on PS3. There was Lego Harry Potter years 5 through 7 on PS3 that came out in 2011. Then both of them were released on PS4 in 2016, I want to say. This will put them together for the first time, including all of the downloadable content and all of the extras and expansions, whatever, into all of them to make them into one cogent package. So alongside Harry Potter Quidditch Champions comes these Lego Harry Potter collections. And just wanted to throw that out there in case anyone's interested. I never played the Lego Harry Potter games. The last Harry Potter game I played was Prisoners of Azkaban on PlayStation 2, I want to say. So
yeah, I think mine was Goblet of Fire, which I didn't like at all. I think there was a demo on 360 of like there was a Harry Potter game that was ostensibly a third person shooter. Looking back on it, it was kind of like it's kind of like a third person Immortals of Avium in some way, except like Harry Potter themed. But it was like really weird because it was it was like Gears of War, but with Daniel Radcliffe. It was just a very jarring thing to witness. Harry Potter third person.
That's awesome. I love that.
Deathly Hallows. Yeah, it was the last one, I think.
It was Gears. That's good. Sorry, I'm writing a note. All right, Chris, let's get into what we're playing.
Yeah.
I will begin with you. And Buster Crabcakes wrote in. Said, greetings, Sacred Duo. I can't be the only one that was surprised by Chris's muted reaction last week when Colin asked if he was interested in Shadow of the Ninja Reborn. Chris has spoken very highly of the NES original many times, and this new release is ground-up remake with gorgeous pixel art that would look right at home on the Sega Saturn or Neo Geo. To Chris, are you simply not in the mood for this kind of game right now, or did I misremember your love of the original? Have a great one, guys, and have fun at the live show. So actually, you texted me about this yesterday. And because I noted to you, I was like, wow, I saw videos and I'm like, man, that they made the female like so thick. It's so funny. What were they doing here? But it's supposed to be great. But I brought it up last week just to note that it had no platinum trophy, which I thought was strange. But I'd like to pick it up. It looks great. You're playing it, so talk to us about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to flesh out the question, I think at the time, I wasn't sure if I was like super excited to jump into it right away. You know, with the Astrobots around the corner, I also just kind of felt like it is so different because this isn't just like a remake of the original NES game in the same way that we would expect a lot of, remakes of old classic. This is taking something that was 8-bit and ostensibly like turning into like a really fleshed out, Super Nintendo, Genesis. Like it's a complete restructure. Like the perspective is different. Your character takes up most of the screen. Mm-hmm. It just felt like a very, very different vibe. I was actually like, when I first saw it, I appreciated the way it looked, but I was a little bit disappointed because it is so different from the NES version. So I was kind of iffy on it. I was definitely always going to buy it, and I was definitely always going to play it at some point, but I wasn't sure if I was going to do it right away. And I don't know. I finished the game that I was previously playing, Mass Effect 1, which I'll talk about after this, but a lot quicker than I thought I would. Like I was like, oh, it's the end. Oh, okay. I have time before Astrobot. So I was like, yeah, let me play this. Let me jump into this NES remake thing that they got going on. Can't possibly take that long to finish. And so I've been playing through it, and it's great. It's way better than the original. I had a fondness for the original Shadow of the Ninja on NES, but I don't know if I necessarily would consider it like this like favorite game of all time. It was just like there's a very special memory. There are very special memories associated with that game that I play. I played it a bunch of times. I don't think I ever finished it when I was a kid, or at least that I'm aware, because that game was hard. And this game's pretty hard too, but it's like it feels fair. They've updated a lot of things. The perspective change is really nice. It gives the game a new feel. The enemy redesigns are really awesome. In particular, there's really great sprite work here. Like it's really gorgeous. And because the camera is so much closer, you get to see a lot of those details a little bit better. Like there's a lot bigger of a focus on them. The gameplay is like really kind of, it's a little finicky. There's one specific thing that I really don't like, although I'm not sure if it's intentional or not, but you have an arsenal of like, so you have your sword and that's your default one, but you pick up items and weapons throughout the map. And sometimes some of them are healing items and some of them are like different weapons. Some of them are kunai knives. Some of them are like bombs. Some of them are just straight up laser guns. It's awesome. It's really cool shit. But the button layout is very strange, where there's a button to switch to different things within your arsenal, but it's not like one of these things where you press the button to cycle through it. It's you hold the button and then you use the D-pad to cycle through it. Because I guess the idea is like you press R1 to cycle to your main weapon, and then you press R1 again to cycle to whatever it is you've chosen to cycle to the next time. And it's been that part's a little bit wonky to me, because I always just find myself wanting to just like hit R1 until like I get to the thing, because that feels a lot more natural to me. But that little, hiccup aside, it's really, really fun. It's really, really hard, but it's like you learn how to play, like I think pretty organically. Like my first couple runs through it, I was like, oh my God, I'm having such a hard time. Like how the fuck, why am I so bad at this? And then eventually you clear it, and then you can run through those stages like super, super easy, which I think is a pretty good hallmark of good design. It never feels unfair. It feels challenging. It's frustrating at times, but like you figure it out, and there's a lot of like weird little gameplay quirks. There's like a whole like glide jump that I don't even remember from the original. I don't think it was in the original. Could be. But yeah, dude, it's great. As like a classic kind of retro inspired like action platformer, it's super, super good. And the soundtrack kicks ass, by the way. The soundtrack was always really good, even on the NES version, where it was like really, really rudimentary and really, really simple. But they've really done a good job carving out like a new kind of tone and identity for this game. The art style is completely different. The sound style is completely different. Just the stage design is completely different. Although like very, very clearly inspired by the original Shadow of the Ninja. There's like a stage in here too that's like not in the original. So like this isn't like a top to bottom, like from the ground, like, oh hey, this is an official like remake of everything as it was. This is a lot more, I would say this is a game more inspired heavily by Shadow of the Ninja, which I don't think is a problem, by the way. I think it's actually like a smart thing to do, but I think you specifically would love it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out. Definitely.
Yeah. The sprite work is so good.
I'm definitely going to buy it. It's did Natsume Atari publish it or something? It's like some weird company is putting it out, but
yeah,
which is the guys that put out the Ayuden Chronicles prequel, which is weird too. But I think the game looks beautiful. Again, very strange to not give it a platinum trophy, but that's just a mere aside. I do want to play it. I want to support it at full price as well. It looks great. It looks like people are enjoying it. It's getting good feedback. And again, that female character is just so funny to me. I'm like, oh my God, like what an intentional design choice, you know?
Yeah, she's thick as hell. But there's one thing I will say, it's like that kind of surprised me was that this game's built in Unity, and it feels great. Which is kind of, I don't know. Like I feel like I've seen a lot of 2D attempts in Unity before that don't really work that well, or that struggle a lot at capturing the feel of those old games, just because it's a different engine. But dude, it feels really authentic. I'm excited for you to play it. I'm excited to hear what you like, how it strikes you.
Yeah, I'm looking at it now, and it looks phenomenal. You know, I'm glad people are still, you know, there's a small niche that are still making these games, and people enjoy them. And I think the masters obviously remain like Inti Creates and a few others, but this is good stuff. I mean, it looks great. Yeah, it's so funny when I look at games like this. I'm like, how do people not see the beauty and the wonder in games like this? It's just, this is video games to me, you know,
dude. It is so funny though, looking at side by sides of the original Shadow of the Ninja, because the original Shadow of the Ninja is so muted in comparison. Like there's not, like, with respect, like I appreciate that game very, very much. Earliest memories of video games with that game, but there's so it's just like, it's like there was no room for the amount of style that's in the new one. Like it's really, really an amazing transformation, an amazing glow up for this game. That like there's no reason to play the original now. It's one of those, you know, where like it is completely, it's like Dead Space to me, where it's like, oh, this is so superior. And this
is it exactly in there anywhere?
Is the original game?
Yeah.
I don't. Maybe I don't think so. I don't see why not though. I mean, it would be like 1 megabyte, but I don't. As far as I know, I was like looking through the menus a little bit, and I didn't see a way to start the original Shadow of the Ninja. And there's definitely no way to like toggle back and forth like a Halo 2 Anniversary thing, because it is so fundamentally changed. Just even from just like the bit, you know, the bit count. So I don't think there's a way to do that, but dude, it's really good. I highly recommend it. It's like, I think $20 right now. And I think it's super worth it. It literally feels like an arcade cabinet, like just something you'd play in like a pizza shop in like 1999. Like it's got this vibe about it that's so endearing and welcoming and just exciting. And it's like, it's hard, but it's not impossible. It's fun. It's like not super serious. The designs are great. The boss fights are really cool. There's like a whip. There's like a Castlevania style like whip attack that was in the original game that I remember, but it's really fleshed out here. And it's like really satisfying to use. Just really great stuff. I'm really happy with this game.
By the way, you said the game, it would be like a megabyte, which is funny. I was wondering, I'm like, how big were that? I'm like, that might even be too big. The entire NES catalog is 237 megabytes.
Yeah, like isn't
that incredible?
It's so insane. Oh my God. But yeah, so I've been playing that, and I also I think I talked about it on one of the previous episodes where I was like, I should play Mass Effect 1. Because it's just been sitting. I finished Mass Effect 2, I finished Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 1's the only one I didn't finish, and I got kind of like I got soft locked the last time I played it, so I kind of put it down, and I figured I'd come back to it, and so I finished that up over the last week. Started from the very beginning, made a new Shepard, and Mass Effect 1 is really great. I still obviously 2 and 3 are vastly superior to me. Like, there's definitely like I know what you were talking about and what other people are talking about with like the role playing stuff, like the role playing mechanics in it. It's definitely more fleshed out in the original Mass Effect. But I will say, Mass Effect 1. How do I say this? The level design or like the stage design in the original Mass Effect is treacherously bad. Like, it is obscene how many times I was like walking through the Citadel or like walking through like other areas where I'm like, where the fuck do I go? Where am I going? This map screen is terrible.
Yeah, why is this so big?
Yeah, there's no like the signage will tell us like here's the way to the wards, and then you'll go down and it'll be like just one elevator that's nondescript that doesn't take you anywhere. And then like I came across so many different like forked hallways that looked like there was supposed to be something in them, and like neither path was anything. And it's just like, okay, I guess they didn't figure this out until the next one. Because I swear to God, I don't remember having the problems that I had with just navigation in Mass Effect 2 or 3 that I did in Mass Effect 1. Also, the Mako, way better in this one than I remember it being in the original, but it's still pretty bad. Like, it's not.
It is bad. Like, there comes a time where I'm like, Jesus God, just let me find this Prothean ruin or this object and let me get the fuck off this planet.
Yeah, it's there was a point where like I was like upside, like I flipped it upside down, and there's like a way. I don't think there wasn't in the original Mass Effect 1 to like reset it, or if there was, it was like really awkward. There's supposed to be a way to reset it in this game. And I think it works like 90% of the time. But there was one point where I was like, oh, I have to restart.
Yeah, that sucks.
because this thing's not.
It's
this
a
thing
cool
is not flipping.
It's a cool idea. That's like what I was talking about with the Mass Effect is the most role playing and the least third person shooter of the 3 games. And then they start putting it, on the spectrum more towards the other end by the time you get to the third game where it's bare. Like, what I remember complaining about with Mass Effect 3 was there's obviously a finite amount of experience you can get in Mass Effect games, but in that game, like, you would basically just get experience points for doing the things you were supposed to be doing. So, like, what is the point? Like, where's the growth potential or the role play? While in the first one, there's a lot more emphasis on optional quests or whatever. Plus, the biggest thing that I see people talk about with Mass Effect 1, you have the deeply racist Ashley Williams in that one.
Oh, so, yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Well, even Shepard's a little bit racist, like in the beginning, because he's like, "You really trust a Turian for?" Like, it's like, oh, because you'll select an option that'll say something like no. it'll say no, and then Shepard will be like, "I don't want this filthy Turian." And it's like, right. Oh, I didn't. Whoa, relax. Dude.
Yeah, like there should be an option where it's like no, and then no, and in parentheses it says racist.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like, that's one of the things that I think is really extraordinarily clever about Mass Effect's lore is that, and we've discussed this in the past, is that in the lore of the game, everyone thinks, all the races think the humans are crazy because the humans found the Turians and then immediately fought them, right? Like, that was our first instinct, was to like go to war. And so no one really trusts us, and we are racist in that game. Like, the humans are like looked at as a racist group. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because you play as it's coded kind of like Fallout New Vegas in a way where, although Fallout New Vegas is later, where it's just gray. It's unclear what is right and what is wrong sometimes, and who is right and who is wrong. Is Ashley wrong to like not trust the other races, or is she right to like be like, no, we're human first and all this kind of stuff? It's like really quite sophisticated. But I love her just being like the things people share of her just like saying racist shit or whatever. It's like, oh my God.
It's really good. And I really enjoyed my time with it, but like I got through it so much faster than I thought I would. And to be fair, like I did only like some side quests. I didn't really, because I was trying to get it off my list. I was like, okay, Mass Effect 1, I'll just get it under the under my wing. But I think I finished it in like 12 hours or something. And I'm like, is this an RPG? Like, I'm confused.
That's quick.
Because like I think my brain is so acclimated. I was mainlining it mainly, right? Because like my brain is like, oh, it's an RPG. It's gonna take me 90 hours to finish. Because that's my current calibration for RPGs. It's like, oh, I have to mainline this because I don't have time to do the extra shit. And now that I've seen like how quickly like you can get through the main story, I'm kind of thinking like, I don't know, maybe I'll maybe I'll just replay it and just do a lot of the side stuff because it was so fast.
Yeah, I'm looking at how long to beat. I looked it up. It says main story 17 hours, main and sides 27 and a half hours, completionist 42 and a half hours. I never really understood what the completionist was. What's not main and sides? I mean, maybe that's like going to all the planets and doing all the Mako stuff.
Or like codex, like getting every codex.
Oh yeah.
True. But dude, like 17 to it might have been like closer to 15 hours, I think. But 17 to 20 to 30 hours is like, that's great, in my opinion. That's a great length for a game.
I agree. People would balk at that today. Well, not in a game like Dead Space or Resident Evil, but in a game that purported to be Mass Effect, to be able to have beaten it that quickly, I think people would balk at that today, which is unfortunate. Like, imagine if the new Dragon Age was 17 hours long, people would fucking melt down.
Oh my God.
All right. So yeah, Shadow of the Ninja Reborn, Mass Effect 1, good stuff.
Yeah.
I have still yet to play the new Mass Effect. Well, it's not new, it's old now, but the Mass Effect PS4 collection. So I would be interested to go back and check that out again. I haven't played 2 or 3 since they respectively came out, I don't think. So it's been a long time, but I did play Mass Effect 1 in 2020 again. And I think they should have just left Mass Effect alone after the 3 games, because it's so good. Like, just leave it alone. Like, we don't need it anymore. They literally figured out a way to go to the next galaxy in Mass Effect Andromeda just to keep it going. It's like, come on, that's so improbable and ridiculous. I'm not saying there's anything realistic about the mass relays and shit like that. I'm just saying it was a little more grounded than whatever this was. And then, of course, who knows what the new Mass Effect will be. Although I guess there was an indication that it will somehow be N7 and all that kind of stuff. I don't know.
I
can't pretend to care. I really don't care.
Yeah, especially because you presume that next Mass Effect, whatever it is what, like 7 years away.
Hopefully not that far. I would say 4. Well, actually, maybe it would be pretty far, because I think BioWare shut one of its studios, like its satellites, right? So
yeah,
it might be that once Dragon Age is done, which is imminent, they'll move over as a whole team to really start to produce Mass Effect. So it could be that long. Who knows? That would be stupid if they announced it that early. That's like Elder Scrolls 6 style.
Well, I mean, that did happen though. You know what I mean?
It did
things can be stupid and also very true. And that's one of them, where it's just like, I don't know. It's weird to me that they even announced Mass Effect at all when their next game was Dragon Age. Like that to me was kind of strange.
Yeah, it was an unnecessary distraction.
Yeah.
All right. As for me, not too much to talk about here. I'm playing Ayuden Chronicle 100 Heroes still. I'm like 30 hours in. There's nothing new to report on that. But I've been distracted by something else. Ed H has written in and said, "Hey, CC, this one's for Colin. Are you playing Vampire Survivors yet? I've been hooked since it launched. There is nothing that tickles the dopamine receptors quite like that I can recall. Sorry. That satisfying loop of progression from underpowered to stomping whole screens full of enemies repeated every 30 minutes. Simple gameplay, plenty on unlock. What's not to like? Are you going to stop at the platinum on this one or try to get all 221 trophies?" So I've been playing this game every night and trying to kind of just splice it in. When it first came out, I was playing a lot of it. And then as the week has gone on or so since it's launched, I've just kind of tapered to playing a few matches a day or whatever. And it's really, really great. I talked about it extensively on Summon Sign, so some people might have listened to that and heard deeper thoughts, but it's very, very good. It's clever. It's simplistic. It's addictive. There is a nice unlock loop. You're always doing something towards a goal, it feels like, in some way.
Yeah.
All of the trophy support is really cool too. It seems clear to me there are DLC packs, and so those would have their own trophies, but it seems like they've kind of managed to, and I don't know if it's a unique deal they made with Sony or just something that they've kind of discovered about the way things can be done, which is that like you can kind of just release a bunch of supplemental trophy lists for your game, it looks like, if you really want to. And that's what they've done largely with this game. And so it's cool. So there's that core platinum trophy list, and then there's just a bunch of other trophies you can get, and you're always earning something. So it really is fun. And they do it like Quantic Dream, where the trophies don't unlock until the game is over, which I think is kind of cool. So you can unlock like 5 or 7 trophies at once sometimes, but they'll only pop when you're on the end screen. And there is you get the trophies, but there is a bug where the trophies don't always pop. But when you go to the trophy list, they're there, so you get them. So I don't know what that's all about. But one thing that I noted about the game that I think is troubling, and I've gotten a lot of pushback on this, but it's really just how I feel, is that I find the Castlevania copying egregious and unnecessary. Most of the game, it's not necessary. There's nothing about the game that's cool because of the Castlevania stuff. The Castlevania stuff is noticeable if you're into that sort of thing, and I am. But coincidentally, it is a coincidence that I'm wearing the shirt. But there's a lot of stuff. First of all, the fundamental gameplay has nothing to do with Castlevania.
Right.
And having a vampire-themed game doesn't mean that you have to do Castlevania. There are other vampire-themed games. So I find the whole makeup of the game, generally speaking, not helped, but rather hindered by the Castlevania stuff, because it's a distraction of all of the things that were blatantly copied. And this was the thing that I was talking about with when I had Hogan. One of the 4 topics we talked about on Plus was, how did they get away with this? Because it seems like so much deeper than just a little ode or just a little wink. It's entire arsenals of weapons that look and act exactly like they do in Castlevania to a T. There are a number of enemies, not most of the enemies, but many of the enemies are direct copies of enemies in Castlevania. And and the example I used was, I was like, what if they made Mushroom Survivors and it copied Mario? Nintendo would never seen the light of day. If they did to Mario what they did to Castlevania, never. If they did to Sonic or to Uncharted or something big with like a company that really would be willing to defend its IP, I just don't think. And I know that Konami is good with it because they worked with them on DLC for Contra, which is fine. Because some people are like, well, if it doesn't matter to Konami, why does it matter to you? And I'm like, because I just feel like it's kind of bankrupt. Like, it's not that you have holy water in your game. It's that the holy water is blue in a bottle that is identical to it in Castlevania and does the same thing in Castlevania. It's not that you have an axe. It's that the axe arcs out of you exactly like it does and looks just like the Castlevania axe. It's not that you have a Bible. It's that the Bible circulates like a barrier around you, just like in Castlevania. And you can go on and on about this for dozens, if not scores of things in the game.
Right.
And I just don't find that savory. I don't know. To me, I just think it's a strange move and unnecessary and not additive to the game. It's something that's so unnecessary that most people wouldn't notice it. Even if you were a Castlevania fan, you might only see hints of it. But for people that don't know Castlevania, they would never see it at all. And I look at the game and I'm like, this is just a fucking rock solid idea. So when you have garlic and laurel in your game, that's cool, but let's not pretend that you didn't get that from Castlevania 2.
Right.
Yeah. And so I don't know. It's not 6 of one, half dozen of the other, really. It's something else. It's just 2 categories of something. A really fantastic idea and a fun game that I really enjoy. No doubt about it. Like it, love it. Highly recommend it. $5. Just amazing, like value and all of that. And it's proliferating and people love it. But there's this other thing where I'm like, why did you feel the need to invoke Castlevania so deeply? And something that I didn't know because I didn't follow the game too closely, but Hogan told me about this, was like, it was apparently way worse when it came out as far as copying Castlevania. And I was in my mind thinking, how could it be any worse than this? Like, what are you saying? And I really want to go and look. Apparently they patched things out and like changed some sprites and did some things. Apparently, I don't know very much about the situation, but I'm like, wow, dude, because this is the ultimate commercial result of it, is like the form of Vampire Survivors now that I feel like mimics Castlevania motifs, weapons, and all the rest a lot. And you're telling me it was even worse, interesting. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's my major problem with the game. And it is a problem in my opinion, but it doesn't diminish the game as far as a play. It's a very wonderful experience. I really like it. I'm just disappointed in that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that. I think for me, I look at it more like, because I'm only kind of loosely familiar with Castlevania. I know Symphony of the Night. I know the show, and I remember watching like a lot of just video game content about the old Castlevanias. But I think I played a little bit of Simon's Quest a long time ago. So there were things that I noticed. The Bible is the obvious one for me. It's just like, oh yeah, it's the Bible from Symphony of the Night. It's cool, sick.
That's crazy because it's like the sub weapons. I'm telling you, the dagger, the holy water, the whip, the axe, the boomerang that's shaped like a cross. Like this is all with the same colors. It's like the crucifix that looks just like the crucifix, and people are like, it's not the same sprite. And I'm like, I don't care if it's the same sprite. We all know what it is. And this is what I'm saying is that I wonder if there's a video. There must be a video out there like showing like, dude, this is how deep it goes. It's no joke. Like,
right.
Like, I think that some people are like, oh, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. I wonder if you are familiar with Castlevania if you think that, because I'm telling you, I'm not. Like, if you would have to, it's some of the things you have to see to believe, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said on the show, I'm like, this guy loves Castlevania 2, this guy loves Castlevania 3, and this guy loves Symphony of the Night. There's just no doubt about it, because so much of this is taken from those three games. So it's cool. I have no problem with it, but let's not pretend that it isn't what it is and that they just kind of got away with one. And to Hoke's point, maybe there was nothing to get away with. Maybe that is the look and feel argument. And you can't copyright an idea like,
yeah,
but you can copyright or you can't claim an idea. I should say you can claim the execution of it. And he and I were discussing the famous Apple Microsoft cases in the 80s over Windows and Mac OS, and how they're just mirror images of each other, clearly one copying the other. And Microsoft very clearly was influenced by Mac OS and Lisa in making Windows and the graphical user interface and all the stuff that came from Xerox, but they got away with it. It was legal. So, but I feel like this is, you could tell that Konami's an irrelevant figure now in publishing, and that Castlevania is not very important right now generally, because I feel like this would have been a bigger deal if it was another target and another publisher. That's all I'm saying. Imagine a Mario themed Vampire Survivors, and think about how Nintendo would have gone back in time to remove that.
But Nintendo is comically litigious though. Like they're the ones who would, if anybody. And so like I don't know. I look at Vampire Survivors like, oh yeah, this is clearly. I mean, it was obvious to me that there was like very clear Castlevania, inspiration at the very least. But to me, it almost felt like, oh, this is almost like a fan. It's almost like not a mod, because that's not necessarily accurate, but like a fan game in some way that isn't like Castlevania at all, because like you said, it's like the gameplay is not at all.
No, not at all. I mean, not at all.
I think that's the main reason why they're able to get away with it, because I think Castlevania as an idea in and of itself is kind of based on a lot of just publicly available stuff. Like a Castlevania as an idea is almost kind of, it's not particularly, I don't want to say unique necessarily, because that's not the right word, but it's based on kind of open source ideas in the first place. And so I feel like Vampire Survivors, because it's not the same type of game at all, is able to get away with a lot of that lifting it's like Power World. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We're like, Power World is obviously Pokemon. Like under no circumstances is it not. But you play Power World and you're like, this is not fucking Pokemon. Like this has nothing to do with Pokemon at all. And I think that's the only reason they're able to get away with that kind of thing.
Yeah, but I also think, I agree with you, but I actually think this is worse than Power World. Like I would say substantially worse. If you understand the mechanics of Castlevania and like what things look like, what things are, who the enemies are, and all of the rest, I would be hard pressed for you to play this game and be like, you don't see something every 5 seconds. That's like not just inspired by, it's like, oh, that could be a Pokemon. It's like, no, that is a Pokemon. Like that's more my thing. Like that is a fucking Pokemon. That's kind of like what Vampire Survivors is to me. And I'm not gonna stay my sword as it is on this. I got to look it up. I don't want to look it up quite yet. And this is what I said on Summon Sign. I haven't done everything in the game, so I don't want to watch any videos and spoil elements that I've not seen yet. But if there's nothing out there that really shows this stuff, I might just make a side-by-side comparison video myself and just show you to be like, this is what I'm.
You should.
This is like what I'm talking about, and I wonder if you see it. But someone else must have done this. Like it's so obvious that I can't believe that I would be the first person to have done it. So we'll see. Yeah. Once I'm through all the content, I will look into that. And again, it's not to take the piss out of the guy. Like I think that's again the disappointment in it is that it's a great game with a great fundamental idea, and it didn't need to do that. But if you have nothing to be ashamed of and you didn't do anything wrong, then you wouldn't mind the comparisons being drawn, of which there are dozens, if not scores of them, that are not kind of, in my opinion, but like are in ostensibly something from Castlevania. But
Vampire. I'm seeing one right now. It's like Vampire Survivors references to Castlevania from 2 years ago.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like it's got to be an extensive catalog of things, which is cool, and But yeah, so I don't know. That's what I walk away from. I'm really enjoying it. The price is right for sure. $5 is an amazing price.
Yeah, super good.
Sumo Joe 118 wrote in and said, "Greetings, fellas. I've been playing Vampire Survivors on PS5 and really enjoying it. It's been out for a couple of years now on other platforms, and I'm surprised that a bigger developer hasn't taken a crack at this super addictive gameplay loop yet. Imagine a studio like Housemarque making a Vampire Survivors type game, but with the visual style and particle effects of Resogun, Alienation, and Returnal. You could make it free to play and constantly have new skins, crossovers, maps, events, enemies, and characters. Do you think we will see more games like this in the future with a higher budget? I think it would be a license to print money." I don't know. First of all, as I understand it, there are more games like this. They're typically on Steam, which is not a place that I'm familiar with, but that there have been clones now coming out and people messing around with this model of kind of buttonless movement and getting through with just constant attacks and upgrades and kind of just winging your way through these things. But in my opinion, and again, this is really in the eye of the beholder, but it almost reminds me a little bit of what I always say with Cuphead and other examples I use, where I'm like, I don't know that you can really replicate this game without really ripping it off in some fundamental way, which is ironic in and of itself from what we were just talking about. People are very happy to, in other words, 2D platformers exist, right? And there's a million of them. And we think of a few of them, but there's a whole different slew of interpretations of them. But can you get away from, is Vampire Survivors too simplistic to replicate without just being reskinned Vampire Survivors? In which case, I would just corner the market with them, which is another thing I was saying on another show about Konami, where it was like, if I were Konami, I would have shut this thing down and been like, let's just do Castlevania. Like, you're already doing it. Let's just do it, and do a Castlevania Survivors or something like that. I don't know that I don't. So in other words, I know these things this is being replicated, but in a major way, I don't know if you'd really be able to execute on it. And I don't know if that would really be a wise move, because Sony doesn't want to sell games for $5. And I don't know if Vampire Survivors is printing money the way you think it is. I think it does very, very well. I think the person that made it has made tens of millions of dollars on Vampire Survivors, but that's not sufficient amount of money for a AAA studio to make. So
right,
it's a nice idea in premise, but I don't think it would be something that would be worthwhile to pursue personally.
Yeah, I've seen one of these things. It's like there's a skeleton with a halo that's like almost the exact same. Just mega funny. Yeah, they're definitely there.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. So, and again, you have to be a Castlevania stan in some way to know some of them, because some of them are really obscure. Like there's a green witch in the game, like an all green witch, and it's from Castlevania 2. Like straight up, like it's the witches that run through the towns at night during the day-night cycle.
Mm-hmm.
You have to just, and the whole inclusion of even Garlic and Laurel are just, it's like, yeah, vampire related, but that's Castlevania 2. Like there's just no doubt. I know the games the guy is looking at in making some of these assets. So that's fine. But yeah, I'm glad there's a video out there though showing it. Some of them are really obscure. I was saying to Hogue, like there's an enemy in Castlevania 3 on a pirate ship that's a pirate holding his own head with a sword. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, that enemy is in Vampire Survivors. How are people going to look at this stuff and tell me, that it's like that's a fucking random enemy. That's just a random design. And there it is. But yeah, no, it's nothing wrong with that, doing that over and over again. Okay. All right, let's get into the news. I forgot to say this earlier, though, before we do. I got the new issue from my friend Sandeep Rai over in the UK of the unofficial retro PlayStation magazine. Look at that cover.
Oh, ooh, cool.
All about Killzone. So this is issue 4 for September through December. And he teases issue 5 on the back. Demon Souls, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, nice little... I mean, he's doing great work over there. This is, 67-ish pages this month, or this quarter, I should say. And really proud of all the work he's doing. You can find him on Twitter /X at Too Old for Gaming, with the 2 and 4 being numbers. And this stuff's on Kickstarter. It's on his website. My friend Sandeep did really, really great work. I'm really proud of all that he's doing. And the real cool thing here is he has an interview with Seb Downey Blackwell, which is the producer of the original Killzone and the Killzone series. And it's this lengthy piece. He's getting stuff where I feel like this is going to be people are, if they're like, if my friends over at Video Games Chronicle, for instance, or anything are listening, like this is something I think you would want to buy, expense. And you can probably start sourcing it because there's some interesting new information in here about a bunch of stuff and a bunch of, let's see what's on the docket actually for, is there a, so PS Plus reviews, Killzone retrospective, Killzone producer interview, E3 to 1997, the making of Wipeout Pure and Pulse.
Oh shit, really?
Spec Ops: The Line retrospective, Zone of the Enders series retrospective, Vice City retrospective.
That's crazy.
You're killing it. Sandy, keep up the great work.
Oh, dude, Wipeout Pure for real? It's weird that would be like mentioned at all. Nobody ever seems to care about that. I'm like the only person who cares about that game.
Yeah, let me see. Where was that? Page 20. So, an interview with designer Carl Jones. The
That's
making
so
of
cool.
Wipeout Pure Pulse HD in 2048 is in this magazine. So, definitely check that out. I think you guys will enjoy it. I love seeing stuff like this. I'm glad to be a small part of the inspiration for such a great project being executed even better than I could have imagined. So keep up the good work. RPM, Sandy Bry, go support them. Now let's get into the news. Really change focus here. Oh. You guys wanted to talk about this. Of course, it's the big news. If this didn't happen, we would have really nothing to talk about this week.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we have much to discuss here with this, which is fine. Number one, in news that we spoke about just last week as being an outside but unlikely outcome, Sony has opted to shut down its new service game, Concord. By the time you hear this podcast, the game will have been pulled offline, perhaps permanently, though any future potential remains to be seen. Including its early access period, Concord was online for a mere 2 weeks or so, and in that time attracted a small player base of perhaps only 30,000 people or so across PlayStation 5 and PC. This would be a failure for any game as a service. For a PlayStation first-party game, when taking into account the size of its dev team and its geographic location, the 8 years it was reported to be worked on, the unknown likely tens of millions, if not more, that Sony spent on buying the team outright, and so on, Concord is arguably the biggest failure the brand has ever seen. A brief PlayStation blog post announced the news. Purportedly written by the game's director, Ryan Ellis, the letter notes that Sony will take the game offline, quote, and explore options, including those that will better reach our players, end quote. As such, quote, while we determine the best path ahead, Concord sales will cease immediately, and we will begin to offer a full refund for all gamers who have purchased the game for PS5 or PC, end quote. The letter later ends, quote, we'll keep you updated, and thank you again for all the free gunners who have joined us in the Concord galaxy, end quote. Concord's failure will have deep and reverberating effects around PlayStation, a low 9-figure failure that will recoup virtually none of its cost, and will further underline how bizarre and ultimately stupid it was that Sony opted to purchase the team just last year, in the spring of 2023. While the Bungie acquisition will cost Sony more in sheer dollars, the Firewalk acquisition and its Concord failure will be spoken about for years as a turning point, one way or another, of Sony's service game initiative, and feels especially strange considering Sony's insane success with Helldivers 2 earlier this calendar year. The questions are thus, what will Sony do with Concord? It could kill it outright or bring it back as a free-to-play game. There seems to be no third or fourth option. But in providing unsolicited refunds to all players, it appears Sony may be somewhat obviously hoping to retroactively cancel this product and write it down on their taxes. We'll see in which direction they go. The other notable thing to keep an eye on is what happens to Firewalk itself. It's unlikely the team will survive with its current headcount. Should Sony decide to pursue Concord in some way, it will likely be pursued by a smaller team. However, Firewalk and its product have been a total loss for the brand, and it also wouldn't be surprising if Sony took the loss and walked away entirely, shuttering the studio. I don't even know where to begin. I want to read these two things because I just think they're interesting.
Sure.
Before we even get into the serious stuff. Michael J. Sutherland wrote in and said, "Good morning, gentlemen. So I haven't seen my girlfriend as she was out of town for the holiday weekend with family. Yesterday we had dinner and she got me a gift for helping out her father a few weeks back as I refused money from him. So she got me a physical copy of Concord, and I didn't have the heart to tell her that the game got temporarily or possibly forever taken down. It's unsealed and physical copies are going for $100 plus on eBay. Should I sell it? Any advice is appreciated." I feel like this is kind of a random thing you might even just hold. Not for any other reason than that it's an oddity. Listen, your girlfriend did you a really nice thing. She never needs to know, right? Maybe if she brings it up, then you're kind of in a good situation here. She did a very thoughtful thing. You say nothing about it. You're thankful. You appreciate it, right? And then if she asks how it's going, you enjoying the game, you explain to her what's happened. And then you'll look really sweet for not having blowing it all up and saying like, "Oh, you got me Concord. The game got shut down." Instead, you would be like, "I didn't want to hurt your feelings, and I thought that the sentiment was really nice. I appreciate it, so I accepted your gift.
Yeah,
but here's what's going on with the game." I think this is a win-win in some sense for you. Don't sell it. Hold it. It was free, and it's an oddity. That's an oddity. That game. I would hold it personally.
100%.
Like if you're looking for a complete PS4 collection of physical games in the future, or PS5 games, for collectors. That's going to be a rare one.
Yeah, that's true. It will be a rare one. Yeah, I don't know. That's cool, man. Like, I don't know. I think you should keep it. But I'm also just like, I every game I ever sold, even if it sucked, I regret. So it's kind of how I feel about a lot of these things.
Yeah, I agree and understand, and I understand people turn games into new games and all of that, and I get that, but I think if you could afford it, you should just hold your shit, because it's hard for me to believe that any game that you buy now will be worth less than what you paid for it in the future, because games are being published. So the supply of games, when a game like BioShock came out and sold 10 million copies, it was 10 million physical copies. When a game like Resident Evil comes out and says 10 million copies, it's 1 million physical copies. Yeah, I guess that's the point I'm making. So just scarcity. But I could be wrong. Like I've said many times, I own things that were literally worth more when I bought them than they are right now. Right. Like my Star Wars figures. All right. The other thing that I know, this was a funny inquiry. This was from Christopher Gorley. He says, "Chris, how does it feel to go out as one of the top all-time players of Concord?"
Yeah, man. I was level 17 with the knife lady that I never learned her name. But she was pretty fun. Dude, this whole thing is really it's just fascinating. This entire because I think literally, I don't remember if it was on a Sacred Plus or a Sacred Symbols, or if it was on Summon Sign, but I remember saying specifically like, this is good, but I can't in good conscience recommend it because I don't think it'll survive for the next like season. And it's totally right. Like, but like I didn't anticipate the speed at which this happened. I don't think anybody did.
It's interesting. Oh, well, first of all, I agree with you, because I just didn't think they could do it. I was getting a lot of Colin was right proclamation, which I appreciate about me saying last week, like, what if they refunded the game? And I was saying that you could do it because the amount of money they made is so trivial that it's irrelevant. Like the gross revenue of Concord is around $1 million, which is, you might as well, that's like an insult to Sony. So them kind of making it right is trivial.
Yeah.
I didn't think they would do it though, because of what it would show, which was like a complete capitulation. The letter from I should actually bring it up on the PlayStation blog just to be able to cite it. The letter from Ryan Ellis, the game's director, noted that they're figuring out options, and we have decided to take the game down and all of the rest, and they're refunding you. So obviously the game, and that's what I said in my write-up, was there's really only two routes. Either it goes away permanently or it comes back as free to play. And I just, this is so nerdy, but I was going through this with Hogue. Here's my handy dandy old person calculator, right?
I haven't seen one of those in so fucking long.
Firewalk employs about 150 people in Washington State, one of the most expensive places to do business in the games industry in the entire world, probably outside of California and parts of Europe. And let's say that their entire cost for the studio, so their salary plus their portion of building rent and supplies and all the incidentals, right, is $100,000 per person, which I think is low, actually, and is generous in this math. But let's say it was $100,000 a person, right? That is $15 million a year with a burn rate of like $1.4, $1.5 million per month of just keeping everyone employed at your studio, right? And all the lights running. Again, I think this is generous. I think it's probably more than that. However, as I said last week, Chris, I don't think that the $200 or $250 million budget numbers that people were throwing around are anywhere near accurate. I do think it's a 9-figure game, but I think it's like a low $100 million game. I think what makes it unfortunate is that Sony then spent an unknown amount of money, I would imagine in the tens of millions, but who the hell knows, in buying the team. Mm-hmm. And the team has made virtually no revenue. So you are in the hole probably somewhere in the $150 million range, right? Then you have the game come out, make $1 million. My theory of the case here, and Hogue was like, yeah, I think it's about what Sony's accounting philosophies are and what they think they can get away with is, my theory is that they're like, we need to cancel this game. And it's too late, basically. Like the game has already been a product that has now garnered not profit, but revenue. And that complicates the entire situation. Again, this is why films are just blinked out of existence without ever being released. Like so that there are no questions. No, we made nothing on this. We couldn't have possibly made a dime on this. It never came out. We never released it. Sony foisting refunds on people, because that was one of the things I asked Hogue on our conversation on Sacred Plus. I was like, what if you don't want a refund?
Right.
What if you're like, I bought Concord. A lot of people that are playing Concord like it. It's not many people, tens of thousands, right? Low tens of thousands. Many of them like it though. What if they're like, we don't want a refund. We want to keep playing. And we want you to keep the game alive. We just bought it. And Sony's literally like, no one's playing the game anymore. And there's no, and what Hogue was basically saying was that if Sony extends itself and gets in legal trouble, they can basically say, we refunded everyone. Like our obligation, everyone's done. Like everyone got their money back. And now we're going to take this product and act like it never was released. I think that's what's going to happen. Yeah. Because if they bring the game back with just microtransactions, how do they ever hope to make the $1.5-ish million a month it costs to keep the studio alive, plus start making some of your money back in profit? You don't want to break even. You would obviously shrink the team down. I think what's inevitable is Firewalk is going to shrink and maybe go away. But if they do keep Concord going, I would imagine it's with a small team that would try to make it work, but it's not going to work. And I don't know, man. I'm just surprised by this too, because I thought what would have happened was we got to stick with the game. It's obviously dead. We can't turn face on it. It makes us look bad. We will get this thing out on PS Plus at some point in January, maybe, and then we'll see what happens. But ultimately, this is over.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to say there. But yeah, what are your high level thoughts here on what's happened?
Yeah. So my high level, I think this is done. Like I don't think they're going to bring this back. And the main reason why I feel like that's the case is that there's too much stink on this name. Like I don't see them really investing any amount of money, any more money into like recoup. Because not only do you have to somehow restructure this game into a free to play model that it wasn't built for, right? But you also have to do some kind of rehabilitation to the image of the game. Like it didn't hit, you know, even when it was free for everybody for that brief period of time. Granted that there's a lot of reasons why like a lot of people might not have checked it out. Maybe there was just people were playing other things. You know, a very short window just didn't allow for a lot of time. Yeah, maybe. But the fact of the matter is that even when it was free before people had negative impressions of it, or before people had negative gameplay impressions of it as they were like getting hands on with it, it still wasn't really penetrating the market in any real way. So I think this is done. Better to just wash your hands of it. And I don't know, maybe Firewalk shrinks, maybe goes to, I don't know, Bungie support or something, or where they would fit. I don't I don't know what's in store for Firewalk, but I don't think we're ever going to see Concord ever again.
Well, let's go through some letters here from the audience. Lots and lots of people obviously wrote in on patreon.com/laststandmedia in our weekly thread for the show. I picked through some things here. I have, I don't know, more than half a dozen inquiries, I think. We'll see what makes sense. Hopefully we can get to all of them, but I appreciate everyone writing in. James York wrote in and said, "Hello, Colin and Chris. Apparently Concord flopped so badly that Sony recalled and refunded it 2 weeks after launch. This is CNN plus tier horrendous and could have so easily been avoided if Sony didn't buy the cow without doing any proper research. Should Sony just poach what they can and shut Firewalk down? The longer they try to keep it running, the more cash it will burn. It's already dead money. Best to cut losses and write it off. I don't think going free to play will save Concord and would likely be a net loss overall. It's unbelievable how Sony was making such strong choices during the PS4 life cycle and during the launch of the PS5 and found themselves here. Between this, Bungie, and the uncertainty of fair games, they erase years of built-up value and have burdened themselves with countless unnecessary financial costs, HR needs, and operational challenges. How do you see Sony bouncing back from this? If you were the CEO, what would you do to turn the ship around before further damage is done? RIP in peace, Starchild." Thank you for writing in, James York. And RIP in peace, indeed. By the way, apparently I saw, this was brought to my attention. I saw this somewhere that I apparently, what did I say? Seize the Carpe Diem or something like that. I said at some point, and that's like that's like an RIP in peace.
Seize the day.
Yeah. What would I do? Well, I think this requires a little bit of reflection on how we got here. And it's sad because Sony is in a strong position right now, stronger than they've ever been with PlayStation brand. At the same time that they're making a lot of calamitous decisions with individual product that is hampering them. In other words, it feels like they're kind of going with one hand behind or arm tied behind their back, where it's like, and they're still somehow doing fine. And you wonder how much more glorious everything can be right now if they just made better decisions. I don't want to repeat myself and what I've said a million times over and over again, other than to say that I don't begrudge them making bets on these kinds of games. I think that the real mystery is this game. I don't want to get too into fair games because we just don't know anything about it, but I don't know if you saw, it was Christopher Dring, I think from gamesindustry.biz, had noted, and it's been reported that the buzz around fair games is fairly positive internally. The thing is that I don't give a shit. Right. Because you guys must have been positive about Concord. Otherwise, it would have never gotten to this point. The real calamity is not in the failure of the game, which is substantial, but in acquiring the team. Because it shows that they just didn't see it right. No one saw this right. The people in positions of, I'd love to know if there were any dissenting voices that were like, this game looks like shit. What are you talking about? You know, or we don't want, like, why are we buying these guys when we can invest in this team or this team? Like, that's the biggest mystery of all, is the step-by-step, you know, the game exists it's kind of formulated in the Overwatch era. Firewalk is founded properly in 2017 under this Probably Monsters banner. They slowly work on this game and develop it. Sony gets involved in 2021-ish. So more than halfway through. Then 2 years later, they just take the team off of Probably Monsters' hands. To me, that showed incredible confidence in Concord. There's no other way to interpret it. And that's just the big disappointment for me. I don't understand the decision making. And again, it could put into context a lot of the hullabaloo around Jim Ryan and his exit. But I would contend that if they thought it was that big of a deal, they wouldn't have released the game. They've canceled other things that they announced.
Yeah.
If you can cancel The Last of Us Online, you can cancel Concord. I mean, it's not going to look great, but if you can cancel that, then you can cancel this. And it just seems like they're trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube now. And
right.
I don't know. Are people going to pay the price for this? Who's in charge of, like, who are the people that are in charge of this that really were the shot callers? Because the buck stops somewhere, and you could say it stops with Herman Hulst and other people within first party, and certainly it does. But also, there's just a lot of, there's a lot of responsibility probably to go around. There's a big organization. It's just a complete failure. This is a game it's not the monetary loss. Like, I bet you the monetary loss on Kill the Justice League was larger, even though many, many more people played that game and bought it, because the game probably cost way more to make. And the marketing, there was no marketing for Concord. The marketing alone for something like Kill the Justice League was probably half of Concord's entire budget.
Right.
So there's no doubt that there are games that have lost more money. But this tragically, with this much lack of consequence, and you know what's a big thing that this showed me too, Chris, and it's something that I remarked to Hogue, was there is a limit to PlayStation's fan base's willingness to support something. And what I mean by that is you would expect a game like this to sell more just out of curiosity. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying it's going to sell 500,000 copies, but you could see a game like Concord having sold 100,000 copies or something, like some level of intrinsic interest from your core group of people. But this game isn't for them. And you kind of saw the results of that. So it's a real failure top down, but it's a failure for everyone involved. I have no sympathy for anyone involved with this, really, apart from the fact that the human reality that some people are going to lose their jobs and they were just doing what they were told, but ultimately they just didn't deliver. There's nothing about the game that's remarkable. And one of the things, we had brought up the beta. It reminds me a lot of when Dreams came out in early access, and you can tell that Sony's forecasting was really bad internally because they had vocally said that they were going to limit access to Dreams based on a first come first serve basis of who bought it, and they never reached that number. And you knew at that point that the game's forecast internally was wrong, and there's something deeply wrong with the game. And the same thing happened with Concord's beta when it was supposed to be a closed beta for for people that pre-ordered the game, and then at the last minute they're like, it's for everyone. It's like, your forecasts are bad, the pre-order numbers are bad, you can't even populate your servers with the people interested in pre-ordering the game, you're making it available to everyone, and even then they weren't interested. It's DOA. At that point, there would have been shame in it. I don't want to say there would have been no shame, but it's like, you could have canceled it and been like, we're not going to release it. And the example that I was using of games doing that is, games get canceled all the time, but Paradox recently was working for many years on this Second Life kind of game that was supposed to be really big, and that the last second they just like, nah. Like, it was supposed to come out, I think, in weeks.
Yeah.
And they're like, we're just shutting it down. We're not going to release it. And you do that for very shrewd business reasons of write-downs and all of the rest. But the reality is Sony could have saved more on their taxes by writing this down than they will have ever made from this game, even in free-to-play. And it's a disastrous situation. I really, really want to know what they think about this internally. Something's poisoned in the culture that would create a game like this and think it would be acceptable to PlayStation fans. And that it could happen right after Helldivers is interesting. Because obviously they knew they were deeply involved in Helldivers, and that turned out great. And they gave that about 8 years too. So
yeah, it's a catastrophe, man. And I think one of the more interesting things that you said was like, the prevailing wisdom, or there was an idea that like, we were surprised that they would do something like this, or like issue refunds or do something like this, because they're worried that it would make them look bad. But it kind of begs the question, like, look bad to who in comparison to what? I could see an alternate reality where Xbox was doing really well, and they were like still like a serious competitor, where maybe they didn't do this. Maybe they tried their damnedest to make this work. But I think they're kind of in a position right now where they're just like, no, get rid of this. What the fuck do we care? Like, what are people going to do? They're going to go buy an Xbox? Are they? No. Cancel it. Like, what are we doing? They are in like a weirdly confident place, which actually, like, I think kind of led them to even making this mistake in the first place, which is a little ironic. But yeah, man, this thing was not a good idea, dude. Not a good idea. And it doesn't even benefit from like the Doom 2016 type of, beta reception versus public, official release reception, because it's just like the beta is the game. Like the multiplayer beta for Concord is Concord. It's not like Doom, where it was just like, this is kind of like a taste of like what a portion of the full game's going to be, and then the full game comes out and it's actually great. You know, there was no surprises left in store for it to even really bounce back. And so it really is a kind of what you see, what you get, and people didn't want it.
They really didn't. They really, really didn't. Adam Razik wrote in and said, R.I.P. in peace, Concord. We hardly knew ye. I see only two paths for Firewalk now. Either getting gutted to work as a sports studio or complete erasure. There's no way Sony will ever let these guys work on a new game again. I tend to agree. I don't know with how long games take to make and how long these guys took to make this game. I don't feel like you would take that risk to be like, yeah, we'll greenlight another $100 million game with you. I think it is over. I would imagine it again. It's all contingent on if the game comes back or not, or truly comes back or not. I think the letter, personally, this is all reading into it. I don't think they know what they're going to do yet at the time we're talking about this, but I'm sure they have options. And I find the letter from Ryan Ellis to be quite ominous. But I'll also say this. Any Firewalk that exists with a guy like Ryan Ellis at the top or the other people that were the leaders of the game is unacceptable. The buck stops with a lot of people at Sony. The buck definitely stops with the director of the game. You know, I don't want to hear any more about that. Like, that guy should be out on his ass, right? When this is all said and done. I looked up some of the people. I was going to talk about it, but I didn't want to I don't want to single anyone out apart from people that are putting their names out there. But it's like, I went and looked up. They're already on Moby Games. The Concord's on Moby Games. You know, there are low rung people at studios that are the ones that submit this stuff to Moby Games. It's important for game developers and people that work on games for their games to be on Moby Games so they can point to it. And so that stuff happens very quickly. So Concord was ingested on Moby Games already. And I went and looked at around, and it's like art director, lead concept artist. It's like, these guys got to go. If you are going to keep this going, it's like, these are the people where the buck stops. The people that made these generic designs that greenlit this fucking vapid game with good gameplay. But again, like we said earlier in our show, it's not sufficient anymore to make a good game.
Yeah.
There's got to be all sorts of trappings that make it attractive, especially in the space. And so I don't know what happens to Firewalk, but if I were a betting man, I would say that they are not long for this world. And I think you're right in that they're in Washington. A lot of them worked at Bungie already. So I would assume that maybe some of them just Sony did this with Deviation, where they were just like, we're just going to take a bunch of people and shut the studio. The studio is a second party studio, but you have no more money. We're going to take all your key talent and bring them to us. And I assume that that's what's going to happen with Firewalk, is that a lot of people will find their way to SIE and to studios, you know, Sucker Punch is in the area, and so on. So maybe some of them end up there. But my assumption, I think, is the same as yours, that there's just no way these guys can make another game, because this isn't some sort of one-off failure. This is a catastrophic failure. And though I don't think it's the fault of, like, when an army loses a war, it's not really the rank and file's fault in some sense. Their performance obviously wasn't sufficient, but people make decisions above them. It's not necessarily their fault, but you all win and lose as a unit. Yeah. And that's just the nature of it. It's like a sport. And I will say that I don't know, do we have a letter about this actually? I think we might. No, I guess we don't. I find there's a weird vibe around this game where it's like, the Chuds have won. Great. You know? And also this idea that people are victimized by their own, their own games. It's like, I worked on this game for 6 years. It failed. And now I'm going to, unfortunately, probably lose my job, which is sad, but it's not my fault. And I'm like, I don't know that I buy that level of sympathy. I feel like you buy in on your project, and again, you win or lose as a team. And there's some sort of weird energy around this game where it's like, you guys really fucked this one up. I feel bad for the team. What about the team? What about this? What about that? And I'm like, it's the market. It's just the function of the market. I mean, of course it's sad. Like, it's sad when a factory closes down. It's sad when a store goes out of business. But you can't really, rally people around this idea that you're not doing your damnedest economically to support something that people don't want. It's going to victimize everyone. If anything, the people that spent potentially hundreds of millions of dollars on a project and a purchase of a studio are the ones that really fucked the brand in some way. It goes both ways. So I don't know. I just find the energy around the Firewalk situation particularly confusing when everyone knows that this game was going to bomb from the second they showed it properly. It was clear it was not going to work. And then when they released the beta and all that stuff happened, it was clear it was not going to work. So there's no surprises here. It's actually worse than I thought it was going to be as far as performance. I thought that they would do better than 600 concurrence on PC or something, you know?
Yeah. That I don't think anybody saw that coming. The sheer just failure of it on PC that's even surprising to me. You know, I thought for sure it would, I'll put it this way. I thought for sure it would outpace Lord of the Rings Gollum, you know, at least. I thought it would be, you know, a couple thousand people. But no, man. Nobody wanted this thing.
Nope. And yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I just like, I look at it and as somebody who's played it, I played a good 10 hours of it. I mean, it's just reiterating what you said earlier. It's like, it's good, but like good is not sufficient anymore. You know, something needs to be great if it's going to capture anybody's attention. And it's not great. You know, what are you going to do?
Yeah, this is a real failure, a real serious failure over a PlayStation, unprecedented in some ways. It's not, I don't want to say it's inconsequential. It's definitely consequential. It's not brand altering. It's just a really big failure for this and another bruise at a time when they should really be running with the ball in a very effective way. They're very lucky that PlayStation has transformed as it has into as I've said many times, a more Apple style brand with significant loyalties where people don't really care what's going on anywhere else or don't, you know, they're happy to wait for their games and play whatever. They've created that loyalty and they've earned that loyalty, but it couldn't have come at a better time for them.
Yeah.
John Barnett wrote in and said, "Hey gang, can Sony spend the time and the money to completely reskin Concord? In my opinion, if they really want the game to come back and be successful, they need to completely remake all the art assets, including the characters, and rewrite the cinematic vignettes if they want to keep them at all. How much time and money would this cost? What is the most realistic solution to this epic problem that they have on their hands? Thanks for all that you do." You just can't. I mean, you could do that. It would be really fucking expensive. I mean, animating, designing characters, animating, rigging them up, doing all that kind of stuff. And that's tens of millions of dollars at least to do that in the game, in this game. And I don't, that's not a trivial thing to do. That's why, as we say over and over again, and I remember I was saying it when Kill the Justice League was brought back and kind of canceled delayed for a year. It's like, you really only can do so much at that point. What you're talking about is making a new game.
Yeah.
You know, like that, doing all this stuff where it's like, we focus all of these energies around all of this shit. What's crazy is that there were probably a number of those vignettes that were like those story vignettes that will never see the light of day because they were probably done well ahead of time, assuming that, you know, they were going to do them like every week or whatever. So there's just so much even unseen work into the character development and the world development and all of that they're not going to do that again. So no, how much would it cost? A lot. Will they do something like that? You would only do something like that, in my opinion, if the underlying game was so special and you feel like you really betrayed its potential in a fundamental way. But I don't think the game is that special. I don't play those kinds of games, but I think if the game was stickier and more interesting, even with disinteresting characters and all of the rest, it's like, it still would have done better than it did. The reality is that, again, it's just bland and fine. You know?
Yeah.
And it's not 2009, so it needs to be different. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's weird. I've seen a lot of defenses about it where it's just like, oh, well, people aren't playing the game right. You know, you're supposed to. This is a very different kind of game. It's not just a hero shooter. I've seen defenses where it's like, well, you're supposed to actually. Well, the reason Chris doesn't like it is because he sticks with the character that he likes, which is strange because I think the idea is that like, oh, well, they want you to switch characters. Like they want you to like, you know, oh, you switch to this character and then the next character that you pick has higher mobility or whatever. And that's really the core of the game. And you're supposed to be switching out. And it's like, well, that's not how people want to play these games. Like that's just like a fundamental misunderstanding of why people like to play these games in the first place. Like why would I want to? So I play a bunch of characters that I don't like to get a bunch of buffs, so that like by the end of the game I can play the one that I do like. It's just like it's a really overwrought, like overcomplicated, unnecessary system of engagement that just doesn't really work. There's a lot of like really obtuse design decisions in Concord too that I didn't even really get into when I was talking about it. But just this crew building mechanic, and like, oh well, there's like different variants of the same character that have like different stats, and it's like, what the this is so uninteresting to me. I can't even begin to engage with it, and I didn't because what the fuck am I gonna? Why would I bother? So there's a lot, dude. There's a lot wrong with it, man. Like there's like it played well. But there's a lot of core design decisions. A lot of obviously the art is the biggest thing that I think really killed it. What's really awkward too is that it's got that spot in that show. What is it?
The Amazon
secret
show.
level. Yeah,
secret level. Right.
The whole episode dedicated to Concord, and you're just like, or like at least like a scene, and you're like, oh okay, that game's dead already. Awkward, man.
It is. It's people are like, how did it get in there already? I'm like, Sony? That's how it got in there? Like, are you kidding me? Like, they do wag their dick around sometimes. I mean, it's funny. Like everything about this game and the forecasting around it was so bad. It's just, it goes back into what I've said many times, and I don't mean to be a dickhead about it. It just is what it is. Is like, there are so many people in positions of power that fucking don't know anything about what they're doing. Nothing. Because like Concord, I don't know, like, I would have looked at that years ago and been like,
yeah,
maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I'd love to talk about it with everyone, but like, what, you know?
Yeah. What's special? What's special? If I had the conversation, hey, what's special about Concord? And it's like, all right, well, it plays really well. It's like, okay, fine. There's a lot of things that play really well. What is this? But what makes this? What will make this stand out? It's like, oh, well, we have this crew building mechanic that gives characters buffs after they die. I'd be like, no, this is what. How do you even show that in a trailer? Like, we need something we can show. No, I'm not. This is fucking insane. You know, you can show like the grappling hook in Halo Infinite. Like, you can show, you know, the glory kills in Doom really well and really effectively in like a really exciting way. Like, you cannot show, oh, my next character has a mobility buff. Yay. There's nothing. There ain't nothing. This is the Concord at best, I think, is like the foundation of a game, like a really good foundation of a game that could have been made better. But the cost to do that is just not worth it, really. I don't know.
Well, let's get into the opportunity cost.
Yeah.
Connor Reese wrote in and said, "Greetings, gentlemen. I know most of the discussion this week will be about Sony pulling the plug on Concord for now, but I have a different query about the situation. I've seen this narrative online that Sony shut down Japan studio for Concord and Firewalk. Where is this story coming from? Even posts about Concord going offline have a narrative such as, wow, Sony shut down Japan studio for this? Have you guys noticed this? What are your thoughts? Have fun in San Diego. Wish I could be there." I see a lot of this kind of stuff thrown around, but you can't blame people for drawing these parallels, in my opinion. No, Japan studio wasn't shut down for Firewalk. No. The Last of Us Online wasn't canceled for Concord. No, that's not what happened. But it's all fungible kind of monies spent. There's only a finite amount of it, and they took a piece of it. And so you can't blame people for seeing the opportunity cost on a product like Concord, because there is one. It's not quantifiable because we don't know what that money could have been spent on. All we know is that money and that attention and that time could have been spent on something else. And that's something that's worth lamenting in an era when it's really difficult to make games, and when competition is high, and when you need years and lots of money to make PlayStation level games. So yeah, I see chatter like this, and it's inarticulate and it's ignorant in some sense, but I don't blame people for saying like, yeah, you cancel The Last of Us Online and then you greenlight the release of Concord. they're not related at all. But there is something to it. Sure. What did you see in this that you didn't see in that? Why would you let this get to the finish, to the starting gate and not this? That's worth asking. And I don't blame people for that, because it is true. Again, there's just so much money, so much attention. Internally, you have to have producers and entire pipelines. Like, there are people at Sony, at SIEs, whose entire job is to liaison with Firewalk, to deal with Concord and all that kind of stuff. Those people could be doing something else. That attention could be spent somewhere else. Yeah, it's worth lamenting that. It's not quite as linear as people think, but I don't blame people. It's frustrating.
Yeah.
I continue to be really frustrated about The Last of Us on the Line. I have this dream that they're going to revive it. That, like, they realize that they have this largely finished project that is actually good, that would sell. Like, if you charged $40 for The Last of Us on the Line, it would have sold millions of copies.
Yeah.
And then you figure out a way using a Firewalk or some of the people from there and whatever to support that game. But that's a dream that's never going to come true. Partially because I think that game has been written down on profit, and undoing that could happen, but you'd have to pay a lot of money, and maybe they're past it by now. It would be very unusual to go and revive a project like that. But I have this dream that maybe they're like, yeah, we made the wrong choice. We should figure out, we need to play more seriously in games as a service space. We don't want to spend all this time and money and effort in building something from scratch. We have something on ice.
Well, yeah. Well, right now especially would be a bad time to to make that pitch. I think, I think they're feeling pretty skittish or afraid in this space.
Yeah, I don't blame them. And the whole Bungie thing, like, with Marathon apparently in trouble, and just like, whatever, man. I don't know what the fuck you guys have done here, and it's, again, this is all happening at a time when the PlayStation brand is humming and when profit is pretty high. I mean, as we said, Sony made more money on PlayStation in profit last year than they made on the entire PS1. And in the PS5 era, they've already made more money than they made in the PS2 and PS3 era in profit combined. So the brand is strong, but they're lucky, that the brand is strong, that they don't really rely on these games, and that they're all kind of icing is luck, and earned luck, I guess, because they do have a good reputation. But these kinds of games hurt your reputation. I can't think of any Xbox game that ever failed like this. None.
Yeah, no, not in the same, not financially or like. Yeah,
I would argue, think of Redfall. Like, Redfall was 10 times bigger than this game, and lasted, I think, a couple of years.
Yeah, so no, there's no
comparison,
Yeah. I don't think in the same way. I would argue that the collection was probably like the biggest failure that they've ever had. Like, just not necessarily because it didn't sell well. It sold amazingly well, obviously, because it had to. It's like, there's no shot that wasn't going to sell. But like the state that game was in when it came out was like unacceptable. Like, way worse than Redfall even. And this is it's so interesting. This is kind of like the opposite kind of situation, because Concord is very functional. It was not buggy. It was not underbaked. As far as like the polish goes, it was very complete, but didn't matter because it was just like something like it was a completed project that nobody even wanted. And that's just how it is sometimes. But yeah, there's no Xbox game ever got this low as far as like player count, I don't think.
Let's I'm gonna get rid of this one because that's redundant. Let's see. There's a few other ones here. Okay. Let's talk about the characters one last time. Let's talk about the amazing character design of Lennox. Mac the Knife wrote in and said, I know you've discussed Concord at length and mentioned that more analysis will come, but I'd love for you to dive deeper into a specific angle, the character designs. It's clear from the discourse that they are widely disliked, and you've rightly questioned, how did this get through? I want to clarify that this isn't about wokeism or any political agenda ruining the game. It's simply about the fact that the characters are boring. Great animation, to be fair. Just the actual concept of them is, for lack of a better words, a blur. Considering the likely amount of QA and feedback sessions, I suspect that those who could have pushed back on the character designs might have stayed silent out of fear of retaliation. In an industry rife with layoffs, job security, and the potential for online backlash, do you think there was an internal, unspoken chilling effect that led to a rubber stamping of these ultimately uninspired designs? And looking ahead, could this culture of fear lead to more games in the future being less scrutinized and creatively stifled because workers are too afraid to speak up? There might be something to this. I'm less interested in this angle, Mac the Knife, of internal hesitance as much as I'm enamored by the idea of this game going before focus groups.
Right.
What did they say? Sony does focus test things. It's like, in fact, let me see. Actually, this was for a third party. I just got an email from a source. I was going to say friend, but we're not friends. Nice person, but a source that just went to a focus group for a big game and was telling me about it. And these things do happen. And what was the feedback?
Right.
Well, that's what I want to know. Like, if they were totally misguided, if they go in all their data and they're like, people like the characters, people like the gameplay, they were telling us that they enjoyed it. Something's clearly missing there as well, but I doubt that. I think it's like when you're a musician in a band and you write the song you really like and then you play it live and no one cares about it. You didn't really know that. It's like the other people around you that need to have better ears for the song because you made it and you don't see it clearly. And I think that that's what happens at a place like Firewalk, especially as you work at a game. If you work on a game for years like this, those are just the characters. At some point, you just kind of accept it and it is what it is and you don't even see it anymore. I would love to know and if any of you are listening and you want to talk off the record, or not off the record, but on background, I won't out you, obviously, if you want to talk off the record and you insist, that's totally fine. I'm not asking you to talk on the record, but if you were a part of one of the focus tests, I'd love to know more about this. That there might be some secret sauce in there to let you know about how things got through, that maybe they were just being told the wrong thing by people that have generic taste or whatever. But yeah, I don't think it's about wokeism either. I want to be clear about that. I think that the idea that the characters are woke is a little weird. I think they just suck. Like it's just different. It's like, yeah, right. I know. It's like, oh, you play as like an obese person and you play as, there's a bunch of people of color and there's like really no white people and all that. I'm like, it doesn't matter. The cast could be all black for all I care and be amazing. It's not about any of that. It's just about like, what's woke about a black person? What's woke about a woman? Like, I don't even understand that.
Yeah.
It's about the designs. Like, I look at them. The more I look at them, I look the Concord characters up. Like, on multiple occasions, I've done this and just looked at them. I'm like, I don't know, man. This is crazy.
There's just nothing. There's one that looks straight up like. There's one that I'm not even exaggerating. Looks like almost like a gray box of a character. Like they forgot to add the character to it or something. It's the astronaut with like the fucking fishbowl head.
Yeah.
And it's just all beige. And it's like, what is this? What am I looking at with this character? It's just really bland. It's uninspired. It's very Marvel ripoff. Like, and I know what people are talking about when they mention woke, they're talking specifically about like in the character select screen, there are, I guess, like pronouns in the description of the character, which like doesn't affect the gameplay at all. So it's like, it's not, it really has nothing to do with anything. It's just bad design. And keep in mind, I'm not saying ugly. Because there's ways to, there's Black Myth Wukong has plenty of fucking uggos running around, but they're great. Mm. It's great that they're ugly because it's cool. They're not ugly. They're not pretty. They're just boring, which is worse than anything.
It's funny because the character I think of as like these characters suck is the obese black woman in the green armor with a little flag.
Oh yeah, it's a terrible design.
I stare at that character. I'm like, this character sucks. Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, what is this? And I like great. I love camp and all that kind of stuff too. Like, you can go in all sorts of different directions, but this is just In fact, I love camp. I mean, Mega Man and G.I. Joe were both deeply campy. It's right. To me, I'm like, I just feel like there's nothing here. This is nothing from that perspective. Nothing. And that's why I disagree about people with Fair Games, where I'm like, Fair Games looks like it has 10 times more spirit just from that trailer than this game does. I don't know if it's going to come out. I have no idea. But I feel like it's better off inherently than this game, just from a design perspective. Even if people are being like, it looks like a Ubisoft game. Of course it looks like a fucking Ubisoft game. A Ubisoft team is practically making it. But it's, if art is the major problem or a major problem with Concord, I do think Fair Games will be on a better footing based just on what we've seen. I believe that, but we'll see. They can't, if I were at Haven, boy, man.
Yeah. I saw people talking about like Chris's focus on art design is weird because there's plenty of multiplayer games that aren't like high fidelity or they don't look amazing. And it's like, these are different things. Like fidelity graphics and looking good are two different things. Are most multiplayer games like kind of low fidelity, like not really like high realism games? Like, of course. But they look good. And Concord doesn't look good.
Mm-hmm.
Fortnite to me looks, it's a bit of a fever dream because it's so many different styles in the same environment that really don't make sense to me. But that game doesn't look like shit. To put it bluntly. And Concord, like it's got that high fidelity. There's definitely, you look at the characters and you're like, the facial animation is like, whoa, that's a pretty good facial animation there. Looks like shit. And these are separate things.
Yep, I agree. All right, a few more inquiries from the audience, then we can get through this topic. Aram wrote in and said, howdy, y'all. The recent failure of Concord, along with Sony's decision to pull the game and issue refunds, got me thinking. While many are suggesting a return to SOCOM or Killzone, I'm not convinced that's the right move. The last entries in both series had underwhelming multiplayer experiences, and if there was still potential there, I believe Sony would have already revisited those franchises. This leads me to a bigger question. Does Sony even need to focus on creating multiplayer experiences, or should they stick to what they do best, delivering top-tier single-player games and let third-party developers handle the multiplayer side for the audience? Love to hear your thoughts. No. Like, I know a lot of people disagree with this, but no, they shouldn't. They do need to make multiplayer games. I can't impress this on people enough that the future of PlayStation will necessitate at least one or two major multiplayer games in the first party and second party. And Sony knows how these games do because they have unique insight like Microsoft and Steam and Nintendo would on how big the games as a service space is for third parties, of which they just get 30% rips. And they see in their eyes, it's quite simple, as I've said many times, what if we got all of it? This is worth the investment. We talk about the juice, worth the squeeze and all that kind of stuff. Yes, it definitely is. Sony shouldn't be scared away from the space from this failure. They should be more deliberate about how they approach this space. Probably fewer projects. Because I think there even is a wisdom in saying, remember when it was 10 projects or 12 projects? And it's like, there is some wisdom in that. Yeah. Like just and just see what happens, right? Once a quarter, once every 2 quarters. But there is wisdom too in saying like, well, we could be more deliberate. You could spend more money on fewer projects and make them more Sony-esque, which would give them some sort of advantage. It's this simple. Spider-Man, as we said, Chris, Spider-Man 3, $300 million plus to make, right? You sell, let's do it. Let's do the math. Let's say you sell 15 million copies. Is that right? 15 million? Yep. Times 70. You're looking at $1 billion, right? In gross revenue. And then, so that's $650,000 clear, or $650 million clear or whatever on a massive hit game. Then you owe all of taxes on it, then licensing fees to Marvel, which are in the hundreds of millions of dollars. Before you know it, you're left with maybe $200 and $250 million in profit. Nice. That pays for your next game. It's literally that simple. Like there's not as much money in these games as you think. And most games are not going to sell 15 million copies. They're going to sell 5, 6, 7, 10. There's money to be made there. There's profit to be made there. But there's great danger in that space.
Yeah.
What they really want is this game that costs $100 million or $200 million to get to market and then makes, a few $1,000,000 a month and does that for years, or makes even tens of millions of dollars a month. Or you can even get these behemoths. Some of them make $100 million a month, and before you know it, now there's great cost in that. As we said before, MiHoYo spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year keeping their games going. It's not cheap to keep Zenless Zone Zero and Honky Star Rail and Genshin Impact going. But that's where the money churns. And that's what Sony wants. It's not that I don't want single player games. That's basically all I want. And we'll get them. But that's not where the money is. And when you're just doing it to pay for the next game, basically, or just get a little bit of profit, as games have been charged we've been charging the similar amount for games for many, many years, but the cost to make them is exploded. The time has exploded. There's a great tension there. And the way to release some of the steam is for some good multiplayer games to hit. So I understand, Aram, what you're saying, and I know a lot of people feel this way, but understand that it's not possible. Like, unless you want Sony to really exist on a knife's edge at all times. Because their single player games hit and are relatively safe. But they want more, and you can't blame them for wanting more. This was a bad situation. So it shouldn't scare them away. It should scare them out of their complacency. That this is a place they have no idea what they're doing. And I think they fumbled in the Helldivers, clearly. And which is great. Sometimes that happens. And everyone deserves a lucky break. But I think that the Bungie situation, like, they're fucked in a lot of different ways. And they need to figure out how this is all going to go. It goes back into the opportunity cost thing I was saying earlier. That is just the greatest. That is the greatest shame, in my opinion.
Yeah.
All right. I'm actually going to skip this one because we kind of talked about this. Hashim, Barakat wrote in and said, "Good day, sacred monkey sages. With the possible shutdown of Concord finally happening, do you think it's time for Sony to finally do the rumored fall showcase and state of play to get some positive assurances after the biggest first-party failure? And do you believe it is feasible to tease projects that are early in development for extra reassurance?" I think that's a bad idea to do the latter. That gives you less flexibility.
Yeah.
Imagine a situation where Concord wasn't even teased and they had different options with it. Assuming they saw anything in it that was bad. Who knows? There's going to be a state of play this month as far as the rumors are concerned. And obviously they have to show Pro off. That seems like it will happen at Tokyo Game Show, maybe beforehand. And that's in late September. So something's going to happen this month. And there are going to be games shown this month. Like, I think that's fairly obvious. I don't think first of all, I don't think it's possible to react to Concord in that way. You have a plan. Now, the plan, what was it? Was it Apollo Creed or someone said, or maybe it was Mr. T? You always have a plan until you get punched in the mouth. No, it was not even a Rocky character. It's Mike Tyson. He said you always have a plan. You always have a plan before you get punched in the mouth or whatever. And it goes into the old adage about war that, like, your plan, changes when you confront your enemy for the first time, and it changes. And so they're obviously going to have to make changes on the back end, but, like, showing things out of fear is not a good idea. And it's not like the old days where you had to have, like, your E3 demo and everyone kind of shut down for 2 months and they made their little vertical slice. It's not quite like that anymore at all, but you still have plans. And I think they should just stick with the plan.
Yeah.
You being worried about Concord is not going to make the game that's unannounced get done any quicker or better. So putting it on the spot is a bad idea. Just let it do what it's going to do. There's no urgency around the situation because PlayStation's, this is the ironic thing, Chris, is that this doesn't reflect how PlayStation's doing at all. So they don't have to react. It's not like Concord is the flagship.
Right.
It's just an embarrassment. That's all. And you got to just move on,
Yeah. I mean, unless there's like a thing in the state of play that's like season 2 of Concord, like maybe you want to axe that maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think reacting hastily to this and altering the entirety of how you plan to unveil any number of things is the wise way to go about it. You can't be too reactionary, you know?
We have one more inquiry and then we'll move on. We talked about Concord for about an hour. I think that's sufficient. Iron Will wrote in and said, "Good evening, Knights of the Sacred Table. I don't understand why, if Sony wanted to do a hero shooter, why they didn't just make a hero shooter with a mix of all their unique characters. They have so many characters, just make a PS All-Stars hero shooter. I feel like Concord didn't have the brand recognition to help push it, but using the PlayStation characters would instantly get so many people interested. Make it third person over the shoulder too, so people can see their characters, making skins more enticing. I don't know. Just feels like a missed opportunity. What do you guys think? Would this be a better route? Love to hear your thoughts. I've heard a lot of this. I am curious what you think. Should they be leveraging their cast of characters to do something like that? Would that have been a wiser thing, is to have some sort of zany Fortnite clone, I guess, that's PlayStation characters? I don't hate the idea. I just don't know if anyone would have cared. Concord certainly would have been done better if it was PlayStation characters, though. That is true.
Yeah, I think there's probably a little bit of wisdom in that. Like, I think a couple of years ago, I would have been like, no, that's too stupid, or that's too, like, out there.
Yeah.
But like but I think it's very stupid that there's a hero shooter and you can play as Spider-Man. I'm not talking about Fortnite. I'm talking about Marvel Rivals, which is out in like a couple months, right? Where like they made a Marvel hero shooter where characters that, like, what is your justification for like being in a hero shooter as Spider-Man? It seems insane, but they're going ahead with it anyway, and people seem to like it. So like, yeah, I mean, why not? Fuck it. Okay, fine. Throw Nathan Drake next to Ratchet and Clank. Is it going to look unholy as hell? Yeah. Is it going to be nightmare fuel? Sure. But like, people seem to be into just weird kind of offbeat ideas. So like, yeah, give Kratos a AK-47. You know, like, I don't know. Whatever. It's not exactly how I think Spider-Man uses webs or whatever. So like, you can find some way to like, you know, make something a little like a PlayStation crossover game like that and make it cool. I think that's possible.
Right. Yeah, I agree that there is some wisdom in it. I think I want Sony to figure out, and Jaffe, when I say this is Jaffe, he's always like, why? Like, what? But I'm like, they should figure out a different way than everyone else has done it. I don't know what it is, but like, not a shooter, not a fighting game, like something, you know, but I don't know what it is. And maybe it's just not possible. Maybe there are just so many ideas.
Well, I actually think a hero shooter would be like that because there's Fortnite, which is just like a battle royale where like you can kind of dress as other
right,
IP.
but everyone's the same, right.
But yeah, but like it I don't know. I think that could not be a bad twist, because like there are crossover fighting games, like plenty, but that's really it. Like, there's not really a lot of crossover or anything else outside of just like skins on top of other games. So like, yeah, why not like build a game from the ground up to be a crossover shooter? It's kind of cool, kind of interesting, and you'd have a lot of flexibility in how you design it. It's all IP based, and then you could be like, yeah, this character doesn't have guns, so what can he do? It's like, oh, Kratos, I don't know, throws axes or something. I don't know, it could be cool, but you know, it's up to them. And I don't think it was super clear that was even a possible avenue until something like Marvel Rivals showed up. Because like, I think most people in a boardroom would have been like, that's too out there and dumb. Like, do people want that? Like, it seems like it would be like a really jarring thing. And also, who do you include? Who don't you include? Like, do you tastefully? How you put The Last of Us in something like that? Like, do you even bother? Like, I don't know.
It would be cool if Sony could laugh. It would be cool if Sony could laugh at itself and do shit funny, like give Abby the golf club and like, you know, do stuff like that. And Sony's not capable of laughing at itself very much, though. So
no, they're too buttoned up these days to really do anything.
Astrobot
like
seems like it'll be a nice take. Like Astrobot is low key the game in some sense, because they're celebrating the history of the franchise. It's just not. It's not mass market.
Yeah,
you know?
It's more whimsical than I would argue. Not self-deprecating, but you know, being able to. I wouldn't say it's like less serious. I would just say it's just like more kind of like childlike whimsy than the things that we're talking about.
I'm really excited to play it. Won't be able to play it till I get back from California, but it's on my machine now. Waiting. The countdown is going. And we wait. By the time you hear this, it'll be out. So you're probably enjoying it out there listening to this now. I hope it sells millions of copies. I think that'll be awesome.
Me too.
All right. One more piece of news, and then we'll get into the listener inquiries. We don't have too much to say about this, I don't think. Oops, I put it in the wrong thing. I put it in the chat instead of the...
That happens.
I'm keeping the footnotes here. Oh, did it work? Let me hold on a second. There we go. Keeping the footnotes for the editors. And in Zencastr, we have two little, Brad and Dustin do it all the time too. Two little things here. It's chat and footnotes, and you have to click on footnotes. So I just put Itsuno in the chat because we're about to talk about Hideaki Itsuno. So let's do it. Number 2, in a surprising piece of news, longtime Capcom director Hideaki Itsuno has announced that he has left the legendary Japanese publisher after more than 3 decades. In a message posted on social media, he said in part, quote, that he, quote, will start developing a new game in a new environment. I hope to create fun, beautiful games that are as memorable as or even more memorable than the ones I have created so far. Please stay tuned for my next creation. End quote. For those that aren't nerdy about the personnel behind games, Itsuno isn't a name you may recognize, but he has long been a driving force at Capcom. He began as a designer at Capcom in the early 90s, with his first big product being Street Fighter Alpha in 1995. Before long, he was directing fighting games during the golden era of Capcom fighters, directing 1996's Star Gladiator, 1997's Rival Schools, and both Power Stone games, which Capcom released in 1999 and 2000, respectively. After directing a slew of other fighters, Rival Schools' 2000 sequel Project Justice, 2001's Capcom vs. SNK 2, and so on, he found himself in an unusual place, coming in as a late replacement as game director for 2003's Devil May Cry 2, perhaps the worst received game in the series. But he's been the director of DMC ever since, heading 2005's Devil May Cry 3, 2008's Devil May Cry 4, and 2019's Devil May Cry 5. But many players will be more familiar with Itsuno from another Capcom series, which he also directed, Dragon's Dogma. First released in 2012 and expanded in 2013, Dragon's Dogma 2 finally launched earlier this year, and will go down as Itsuno's final project with Capcom. Why he opted to leave and the nature of what his next project is unknown. Deskquick wrote into us on Patreon and said, "Hey, Sacred Boys, with my question this week, I wanted to take some time to celebrate an industry legend in Hideaki Itsuno. He directed fighting games like Rival Schools, Power Stone, and more. He took over DMC2 and was dissatisfied with it, so he asked Capcom to make him director of 3, and he went on to direct 4 and 5 as well as Dragon's Dogma 1 and 2. And now he is leaving Capcom after 30 years, after having joined in 1994. We will be following your next project with great interest, Itsuno-san. Congratulations on a stellar career thus far. You left Capcom in good hands. Thank you for everything. Do you all have any words about Hideaki Itsuno or his games? DMC holds a special place in my heart. Much love to LSM." I think Itsuno would be almost like Itsuno Sensei in some sense.
Oh, at this point?
Yeah, like the director of like 10 Capcom games. Pretty serious.
It's pretty wild.
So if you read about Devil May Cry 2, you realize that he came on to Devil May Cry 2 as the director very, very late in the project, like when it was almost done. And that game is not well liked. So it is interesting that he kind of came in and saved it, because that would have been the end of DMC, I think, if he didn't kind of go to bat for it. And people really love Devil May Cry. He's certainly not one of the biggest names that have ever come out of Capcom, and Capcom does have a tendency to lose some of its talent. I mean, you look at all the guys that started Platinum Games, all come from Capcom. Tango Gameworks, of course, Inafune and Concept and all of the rest. So they are losing talent over time, but this is another big piece of talent, and you just don't see talent peeling off from some other Japanese entities like this. Of course, lots of Japanese companies lose their talent, but can you imagine how much money Miyamoto could have made working somewhere else?
Oh, yeah.
I think I've even said this before. I'm pretty sure Miyamoto only makes like a few $1 million a year, which is like an insult. Like, could you imagine? I think it's something like $2.5 million or something. That's a fucking joke. Now he's old and like kind of not washed up. He's never going to be washed up, but he's not really mega involved anymore like he used to be. He's more of like an asset and a producer and someone who guides people and all the rest. But can you imagine 25 years ago if someone was like, we'll pay you like $7 million a year to come start a studio for us? Like, people just stay in these spots because they're happy and they're content and all of the rest. And if you're not creatively satisfied and financially satisfied and maybe life work balance and all the other things that might be important to you, you want to move on. But it's always surprising to me when someone that's been somewhere in a Japanese industry, in a Japanese institution, I should say like Capcom, leaves after all that time. It's always strange. And I always wonder why.
Yeah. Yeah, especially if it's not just to retire. You know what I mean? Because like that's one option, right? Where it's like, okay, well, they're done, and they've put in all sorts of work or all sorts of time. They've earned time up, but it seems like he's doing something else now, and he's kind of staying in the industry, but I guess like independently, or like maybe he's going to start a new studio or whatever. It's super interesting. I love the way I don't know if this is like just the nature of like translations, but I love the way Japanese people talk in these Stay tuned for my next creation.
Yeah, and please look forward to. It's always my favorite one.
Please look forward to. It's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wish I definitely have more familiarity with his like fighting game stuff. And I think like Devil May Cry I didn't play a lot of. I played Devil May Cry 4 a little bit and like a pretty sizable amount of Devil May Cry 5. I think I like got to all the way to the end of it and I just didn't finish it. That happens sometimes. But yeah, Devil May Cry is great. Those fighting games are wicked. Power Stone is like one of those weird ones that like I only recently realized that I even remembered. So yeah, it's a storied history.
Yeah, it's it's sad to see him go. I'll be interested to see what he works on next. I'm not a Dragon's Dogma person. Devil May Cry, I only played the first 3. So I've not played 4 or 5 or DMC, the Ninja Theory one. But yeah, I know a lot of people were sad to see him go. I'm sorry?
Did he do that one too? Or was that
No, that was he had nothing to do with that one.
Yeah.
He might have been like, an external producer or something, but I don't
consulting or something.
Yeah. That was weird. I again, in hindsight, I don't blame Capcom for even doing that. People like that game more now, I think, than they did then. It seems like it kind of aged well.
I like it.
Yeah.
It is definitely weird and like there's parts of it that are annoying and it's definitely like edgy boy kind of like okay, but like I don't know. It's like weirdly endearing to me. Like I feel like it's just strange enough. All
right, my friend. Well, Hideaki Itsuno, be well. I was going to say RIP in peace, but you're not dead. All right, let's get into listener inquiries here. We always end our show, Chris, with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience over on Patreon, patreon.com/lastdaymedia. I put up a little thread in the newsfeed each and every week. The other shows do this as well. You write into that. We scroll through them. We pull out inquiries. You've heard a bunch of them throughout the show, and you'll hear 6 more now. Ryan Griffiths begins us off, and he says, hello, you beautiful bastards. With the cost of living crisis raging on in the UK, along with paying a mortgage and having a family, I find myself unable to buy any games anymore, even though I'm dying to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Diablo 4, Spider-Man 2, etc., etc. This is extremely frustrating as a gaming enthusiast, and this being how I relax, my question is this. Should I feel guilty that I'm not able to support the studios and games I love financially like I used to? The best I have at the moment is Vampire Survivors, which is awesome and only £4. But it's not enough to satisfy this craving for diving into games I want to. Thanks and take care, guys. Love to Dustin and Holly too. Thanks, Ryan, for writing in. And that shows you that you paid £4 for Vampire Survivors. Shows you how bad the pound is right now compared to the dollar, because it's $5. It used to be like $1.50 per, I think. Mm-hmm. This is what we were talking about with the yen a week ago as well. Everything's fucked up, but we're lucky to work with the American dollar, which is still the standard. So I do feel bad for people in lots of these different places. And Ryan, you should not feel bad, in my opinion, for not being able to support your games. It's real life, dude.
Yeah.
What if you have? Listen, no one should feel bad about anything. I don't give a fuck about the survival of many of the industries in which I buy things from. You know what I mean? It's like I buy the cheapest thing, I get the best deal for myself, and it's like because I don't care. And it's not up to you to care about everything. I happen to care about video games though, and I have the disposable income to be able to put my money where my mouth is. So I'm able to do that. And I'm thankful to do that, and I think it's important to do that. But it's not important for everyone to do that, no matter the situation and no matter the consequence. You have a mortgage to pay. You have, money's not going as far. You're stretched thin. The last thing you should be worried about is paying full price for your video games, in my opinion. The beauty is that hopefully you have. I wonder how you feel about this, Ryan, with your limited amount of disposable income on this. Is like maybe have that PS Plus subscription, just essential, and just kind of hope you maybe start pulling some games every month that you might be interested in, and that will also give you access to kind of some unique PS Plus exclusive deals to get cheaper games. And then the deals that are on PS, if you're just patient, you can get these games for nothing by the end. Nothing. And I think that sucks if you like care about the health of the industry and have the ability to worry about something so trivial like that in your real life. But I don't think you have anything to worry about in your situation, Ryan. I say get the most bang out of your buck. Use PS Plus, maybe use even PS Plus Extra. And just go into the back catalog or whatever. So no shame in that at all. I do not blame you one bit.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like, just utilize the subscription services. I was gonna say like that's probably like people in the Xbox ecosystem are probably like thriving off of that. With Game Pass. So like, yeah, why? I don't think it's not up to you specifically to save the industry. You're not You're not Courage the Cowardly Dog, you know? You're not the only person capable of making a difference.
Awesome. I'm pulling up something for the next question. Yeah, so Ryan, good luck to you, and be well. And I know you're excited to play these games, but I assume something like Spider-Man 2 will probably end up on PS Plus at some point. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth will probably go on sale. If you love video games, like I know you probably do, Ryan, and I do, and Chris does, the world really is your oyster just in back catalog stuff. Like I love going on PSN. I do this probably once a week even. And I just scroll through the store and just look at things and like random things and watch trailers and see what things cost and look at the sales and look at the little groupings they make. And you see things where I'm like, that's all. I have to stop myself from buying things every week. Because I'm like, it's only $3 to get this game. And then it's like, you don't need it. You don't need it. It's just like, you're never going to buy it anyway. You're never going to play it. But if you're really looking for things like that, it's like, damn, dude, you can find some great value. You just have to go a little further back. But the beauty of games is that there's so many of them, you'll never be able to play all of them. So there's probably a shit ton of cheap games right now that are not new that you should go try out and do it on the cheap, baby boy.
Yeah. There's going to be games that come out and then immediately get thrown on sale because they don't sell because there's no room for anybody to fucking play them.
Right.
So that works to your benefit. Dude, I didn't even hear about this because I found it just by happenstance on YouTube. But did you see this Mars Attacks game?
No, like based on the IP?
Yeah, so it's a theme park builder, kind of like Roller Coaster Tycoon, but like in the universe of Mars Attacks. And I guess like the whole premise is like you abduct people and like force them into like amusement park zoo type things for like alien customers or whatever. And it's called Mars Attracts, which is awesome. And that's like, so it's like, what the hell is this? Like who's this for? I'm so curious about it. It's an interesting idea and like weird, like not at all what I thought would come of a Mars Attacks game. But like, dude, the fact that even exists in the first place should tell you there's too many. There's too many games. There's too many things. Dive into the backlog.
Yeah, totally. It's funny, man. I could sympathize. Like it was so much easier. There were when I was a kid and when you were a kid, but certainly when I was a kid, there were way fewer games and you had a very limited amount of money to spend or like your birthday and your Christmas and all the rest. But you didn't feel like you were missing out on that much that you couldn't get your hands on because you could rent the games and there was time to I felt like I was pretty proficient at one point. And that's just, that level of proficiency is gone now, which sucks, but it means that there's a lot of shit just getting by the goalie on a daily basis. And that just means that there are things that you don't even know you'd love behind you. And there's something exciting about that. It's why I fantasize about the year with no games.
Yeah.
Imagine if we were just all forced to just be like, no more games. You only can play games that are out for 1 year. Can you survive? And it's like, yeah, of course you could.
There's something romantic about that. And I don't know what it is.
I agree.
Exactly. But I agree. I yearn for that exact outcome.
Ryan, another unintended consequence that I think works in your benefit is you're getting better builds, like perfect builds of games by the time they get to you.
That's true.
That's the great irony of video games. You pay early, you get the shittiest version of it. You pay the discounted version 2 years later, you get patch 7 and it works great. All right. Jill Sandwich wrote in, said, hey, gents. So I went through my PS Plus backlog recently and I'm enthralled with Farm Simulator 22. I've spent countless hours getting those perfect lines in my fields. My question, though, is how do you feel about games that have ambiguous trophies? Last night, I popped the trophy Long Haul, which had a description of, in it for the long game, I see. Why would they do this? All the trophies' names and descriptions give me nothing on what to do to earn them. I know we can go to PSN profiles to get guides, but I want to know what to work towards while I'm in the game. What do you think about this approach to trophies? Thanks for all the great content. I love this question, and it's interesting because I've made trophy lists, and so for our games, and this is good feedback. What I like to do with our trophies is I like ambiguous trophy descriptions for story beats that you will not be able to miss. So I'm looking at Twin Breaker now, which we released in 2020, and it was my first trophy list. And it's like, there's a trophy, all the trophies are named after songs I like. So there's a trophy called Us and Them, which is the Pink Floyd song. And it says, discover the secret of the missing ships. You can't miss that trophy if you play the game, but if you went and looked at it, it would be hidden too. But if you went and unsealed it, you would see that and be like, I have no idea what that means. And it's like, well, don't worry about it. You can't miss it. But I do have a trophy in Twin Breaker called I Get Around, based on the Beach Boys song. And it just says leave no stone unturned. And I remember that this one frustrated the shit out of people and people figured it out eventually. But there's a write-up on PSN Profiles for it where it says, you'll get this trophy for collecting and playing everything available in the game. You need to play through all 7 modes available and collect all 40 codex files. Once you've done both of these, the trophies will unlock. So people naturally got them, but it was funny because that did frustrate people, and I won't do something like that again. And there was another vague one I had in here called It Only Took a Day. Where is it? Which is a Dredge song, where it was you had to beat the game in 24 in Earth hours, and people were confused about that, and it just meant to beat it in a day, I guess. So yeah, the vagaries of it are interesting, but I hear you, and this is good feedback, and we've gotten this feedback already to be a little more straightforward with stuff. So yeah, you'll see more of these kinds of trophies in the new game we're going to release this fall of like vague shit, but you'll know that that's story-driven stuff. And otherwise, I'll be very specific about what you have to do. How do you feel about the lack of specificity in trophies and achievements? Do you dig that, the mystery of it, or?
If I like it from like a style, like I think if I were making trophy lists, I would be an asshole and I would make everything vague. Because I do like that there's something, it's cheeky. I get it. Like I get the impulse to do it. But if I'm playing a game and I'm like, I think I want to get some trophies in this game, and I think I want to actually do some trophy hunting, and I see anything that is vague, it immediately pisses me off. So I'm a massive hypocrite in that regard. But yeah, no, I think that balance that you're talking about is fair. Where it's like, if you play through the game and these are like unmissable trophies, then like, sure, why not be vague with them? There's really no consequence. But if it's like mega specific, if you have to like, I don't know, collect X number of like collectibles or do like go through this thing, go through this level backwards. It's like, I'd want to know. I'd want to know what that is. I guess you could look up anything now, though. Like realistically, like if there is a trophy that is vague, someone would have figured it out. And there's probably like a guide about it. So you're not necessarily leaving people high and dry, but I would prefer all that stuff to be like on the console in the game. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to have to like necessarily go to an external source just to figure out what a trophy means, if there's a possibility that I might miss it.
Jill Sandwich, thank you for writing in. Ross Stoddard wrote in and said, hello, sacred gentlemen, and greetings from Bonnie, wet as fuck Scotland. This question is for Christopher. Have you played Halo Infinite lately? I dabbled with the multiplayer at launch, but it didn't grab me. However, I was recently craving classic FPS gameplay, so decided to jump back in. Safe to say I've been loving it. The game feels so good to play, and the game modes offer some great variety, and big team battles are an absolute blast. I've been playing on PC with the new Xbox transparent blue controller, which is stunning, by the way, and maybe one day I'll be playing on PS5. Keen to hear your thoughts. I'll hang up and listen now. Chris?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been a while. I'm not gonna lie. I've just been so busy playing just other things in general, so I haven't really gotten around to playing Halo again. But I think the last time I played it was like maybe like a month or two ago, and yeah, dude, it's great. It's good. I've been saying this for years. It's really solid. There are aspects of that game that are disappointing, for sure. It took them a long time to get certain things in the game that like really they don't need to. I don't understand why it took them so long. Just basic functionality. Like they've actually like just recently, I think, added specific functionality to a gun that was like historically like in the franchise, and then they just took it out when the game came out for some reason, and now they're putting it back like 4 years later. It's or 3 years later. It's very strange. So that game has a very strange kind of existence and a weird life cycle. A lot of directors coming and going, but the core foundation of that game is really good. It's an arena shooter, and it's physics driven, which I love. Physics driven anything. It's one of my favorite things about playing through Mass Effect 1 was like watching boxes or like lifting people and watching them like kind of like float away, and then being able to shoot them and like propel them even further. I'm a sucker for good physics, and that game's got a lot of it. So yeah, no, I think it's great. I haven't played it in a while though. I'll probably check it out in a sometime in the near future. But
okay,
I got so much else to play. You know,
I understand.
I'm still working through my backlog. I'm looking in my rear view at Pacific Drive still. There's something about it that like I want to understand, because I played it a little bit and I thought I was picking up on something, but then I got lost. I got confused. But I don't know. It's calling to me for some reason. Maybe I'll get around to it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever get to that game, because I bought it when it came out and then I played it very briefly for like maybe a half an hour, and I'm like, I don't really like this. You know, there was like something about this where I'm like, I'm not feeling this. You know, I really thought I was going to like it, but maybe I was in the wrong frame of mind.
Well, dude, I was like 50-50 on it, where it's like I like this style a lot. I like the vibe here, but like I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and I don't know if I get it. And I put it down. But like the vibe is cool. Like there's something weird. There's something unique about that game that I really want to go back and check out when I'm in the right frame of mind. Obviously, I went through like The Order and Infamous somewhat recently. I want to go to Sly Cooper sometime after Astrobot and after Space Marine 2, because that's another game that I want to really check out. I'm really curious about that. There's so much. It's too much. I'm so tired already just thinking about how much there is.
I am too. All right, let's see. Let's go to Mark Thornley, who wrote in. Said, hey guys, Black Myth Wukong. Is it a console exclusive or not? A lot of discourse on this between journalists and Microsoft saying it is, but Sony are not marketing it, and Xbox is having issues with games on Series S or ignoring games on their platform altogether. What do you think? Cheers. It is interesting seeing this increasing. It's funny, I actually heard from a friend of mine who used to work at Microsoft talking about this to me via text recently, where it's like there just seems to be things falling through the cracks over there. I don't know if you saw that recent thing with another game where they're like, we can't even get them to talk to us, basically, over at Microsoft to like publish the game. And so we're just not bringing it over right now. It's like, I don't know what's going on over there. But the Wukong thing, so Hogan and I talked about this. He actually wanted to talk about it. It was one of the topics he brought to the show for Sacred Symbols Plus. And though more and more continues to come out about this, and though people that I would generally trust to know things are saying something, I simply do not believe that there is any exclusivity deal with Wukong. And the only reason I say that is because I just don't, it would be a one-of-a-kind thing or a new stance where Sony would not say anything and not do anything, and there would be no obvious inclination, and that the company Game Science, the publisher / developer, would be allowed to specifically by name mention like they talk about Xbox by name. There's just a lot of things that don't happen, including like PlayStation blog beats, more trailers on PlayStation's YouTube. There are just a lot of things where those deals happen and you can see the ramifications of them. What I would believe, although it seems like Wukong doesn't actually run very well on PlayStation 5, is that Sony might have dispatched engineers to help them to get the game going. And that's not unusual. You can find PlayStation people in the credits explicitly in lots of third-party games, but you can also, you should also know that they definitely work on getting games going, and they're not credited as well. And it's not to say they're working on them deeply, that they have some problem to solve or something that they dispatch these people all over the world to do this stuff. And it could just be that Sony worked harder to get it going. Is it possible that there's some exclusivity deal here? Sure. It just was never done like this before. And could it have something to do with the Chinese market or something? Maybe. I don't know. But this all comes from this. It seems to me like really clever messaging on Xbox's part to simply say, like, we can't speak to what's going on with other platforms. We don't know what's going on with other platforms, but it doesn't mean that they know. It means that they're kind of, it's not disinformation. It's just muddying the waters. It's clever communications. And it creates a lot of noise, which is nice, but I just don't believe it. I just don't believe that Black Myth Wukong is some sort of exclusivity deal with Sony, because it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how to feel about it really, because the nature of the kind of game that we're dealing with, it is from a completely different part of the world. It is unusually successful. Like I could maybe believe that there's there's weird stipulations in Chinese contract, maybe, that allow for all of these these indiscrepancies or these unusual kind of things. Maybe I don't know. I feel like it's more likely dude, the game's not running well on PS5, so there's no shot it's running on Series S, and I think that's probably, I don't know, Maybe that's just the obvious assumption, and maybe it's not like super rooted in any like obvious data or anything, but like it just feels like that's like the most logical. That would be my Occam's razor assumption of the situations, that like they're having a rough time getting this game going on this secondary hardware for this other console, and there's precedent for that. Like we saw that with Baldur's Gate and other things. So like, why wouldn't it be this?
Yeah, and that Dune game, those guys recently came out and said that they can't get it running on S as well.
Yeah.
It is an interesting situation. I don't know what's going on with the game specifically. I'm not even really that interested in it at all. So it's not something I'm following, but this idea that there's like this secret exclusivity is kind of strange. Like it's not that these companies explicitly say when they do have exclusives. It's just obvious when they do based on moves that are made. A great example is Vampire Survivors coming to PlayStation more than 2 years after it came to Xbox. Like you would never see those guys ever talk about PlayStation. They would just ignore any comments about it. I used to read because I was curious about when the game was coming over. Like it wouldn't come up, but like there's certain rules. It's just strange. So no, I don't believe it. I don't care what anyone says. I don't believe it until Sony and/or Game Science says like, yes, we have a strict exclusivity, timed exclusivity, console exclusive deal with PlayStation. I'll believe it. But no, I don't believe it otherwise. Just Stashin wrote in and said, hey, I feel like you guys write off the woke criticism very easily and often for good reason. However, I do feel like unattractive characters are a product of woke ideologies. And it's obvious unattractive characters don't help a game succeed. Stellar Blade's success was helped greatly by her character design. Often you guys chalk this up to realism, but video games are not real. Video games are stories, and everything must have meaning in story. In story, attractiveness is the default. Look at every actor ever. When you create an unattractive character in a story, it has to have meaning. Abby is a decent example of this. I bring this up simply because you guys sometimes dismiss unattractive characters as mistakes or realism, but I believe wokeness is the only explanation for the overwhelming amount of unattractive characters in American-made video games. Disagree? I mean, there is you make an interesting point in actors, because I do think that like in top tier frontman or frontwoman actors, yeah, they are attractive people, like generally speaking. But character actors are all sorts of weirdos, like there's some attractive people. And so I wouldn't go that far, but are these things intertwined with each other? Maybe. If you describe wokeism as a need to get to the common denominator, I guess, and then you could say like from a developer or an artist point of view, you're trying to make the everyman. What I think you're saying, just Stashin, is like you don't want to play as the everyman. And I actually agree with you in some sense. Mm-hmm. Nathan Drake being a handsome adventurer, clever, he always says the right thing. He's always doing the right thing. He's always making people look. It's like that's attractive as a player, right? You don't want to play as like the fucking guy next door. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I get what you're saying. And there's no doubt that Stellar Blade's success was helped by Eve's design. Although, as I said when I reviewed the game with our review discussion and Spoilercast, is like I actually wasn't paying much attention to her in the game, because like you're looking at everything else. As ironic as I'm sure many of you were gooning to Eve, but not me. And so yeah, I hear what you're saying. There is something to what you're saying. I just honestly, dude, I hate the word woke. It's very similar to the word snowflake or like trigger warning and shit. It's like, yeah, there's a better way to say this stuff, but I do get what you're saying.
I think there's I think the issue is that like people don't really know how to talk about the various Lego pieces that go into making things what they are. And when they can't explain something, it kind of defaults to the generalized kind of culture, like whatever the predominant term in the conversation is. And I think that that's what woke has become, like, because there's a lot of things that like, I don't know, like I brought this up on a recent episode, like was it woke of NBC to tell Jerry Seinfeld that they needed a female character in the 90s on the show? By modern metrics, like probably. But did that result in like a worse show? No, it resulted in a way better show, probably. Actually almost definitely. Provably so. So like it's not necessary. So even by that standard, in that situation alone, we have a situation where wokeness either makes something better, makes something worse, or can have no effect. In which case, if something can potentially have no effect, positive effect or negative effect, then it really has to do with how it's mixed in with other things. And the conversation that I see around this happening right now. Is around the Star Wars Outlaws with Kay Vess, the main character of that game, where there's like specifically from Maddie's video, there's a hilarious snippet of her in game in like a very specific section with like very specific lighting, looking horrifying. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, I haven't.
But it's
like Jerry's girlfriend in the shadows or whatever. Like
it really is. Yeah. And it's really ugly. But then here's the thing. My challenge to just Stashin, I guess, is look at the cutscenes in that game and realize that, oh, she's attractive in the cutscenes. Oh, and there's other parts of the game where she actually looks good as well. I think the issue really, and I mean this genuinely, is that there is a lack of talent in being able to translate actors and character designs into game engines with focuses on with a particular focus on realism. You know, I think there are certain characters that just don't look right in the way that they're translated, and certain studios are just better at it than others. Like I'm blanking on specifically the games and specifically the studios, but I've seen games where I look at the character models and I'm like, dude, that looks exactly like the actor. That's crazy how they managed to do that. This looks great. Like they look great. It's an amazing character. And then there are other games from like equally like high build, like top talent studios that come out and you're like, that's who this is based on. I don't know how to explain. I don't think that they're intentionally doing that, though. I think it's genuinely just like we can't figure out how to translate this one-to-one. It's not necessarily a priority for our game because our game is focused on this, this, and this. It's a gameplay-driven game. Do people care about how, you know, if everything looks perfect 100% of the time? Probably not. Whatever, we're going to go through on the current pipeline as is. And, you know, Stellar Blade's... I get Stellar Blade, but it's also important to kind of understand the context of Stellar Blade, where Stellar Blade is a Korean game, and I don't know if you guys know this, but porn is illegal in Korea. So I think there's a part in my brain that has like conspiratorially like might have something to do with why that character is
that's
fucking incredibly hot. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't think it's necessarily really the core problem here because like, dude, oh my God, Baldur's Gate is a great example. Every character in that game is gorgeous. And that's a Western game with all sorts of gay, fucking diverse, all sorts of people. And everybody is so hot in that game. It's ridiculous. Except for the bear, I guess.
Yeah. Well, depending on who you are, I guess.
Depending on who you are.
Yeah, there is, I think like the character in Outlaws, I think is a good example, like the really attractive model and then how it comes out. I think what the choices that they're making, this happened with MJ and Spider-Man as well.
Right.
Where like, I think you're trying to say like, you don't have to be the attractive, hot woman to be in this role. And this is not the way it would really go. And it's like, all that's true. And I totally get that. And that's great. But when Showtime made The Tudors and Henry VIII in real world was a fat, slovenly pig, they thought it would be really much better if they made him Jonathan Rhys-Meyer, you know, and like
right.
made everyone really attractive. And that was a choice. It's not historic. It's not realistic, but it's entertainment. And I get both sides of it. It's like, yeah, you don't really want to see Henry VIII, the real Henry VIII, fucking this chick. You definitely don't want to see that. You know, we all know it. You don't want to see it. We don't want to do it. And so I get the whole idea of being like, yeah, this is like she's like a mercenary or a smuggler. And why would she wear makeup and her hair is kind of crazy and all that? And it's like, I'm like, that's cool. But there is going to be a consequence when people want to, do they want to relate to the character? Or do they want like the cool character? Is it cool that Lara Croft is an adventurer or is it cool that she's a hot adventurer? And the answer to that question is different for certain people. Some people really like Tomb Raider for Lara Croft and her sexiness and all of that. And that's kind of necessary. Other people got a lot out of the Crystal Dynamics remakes where she was very attractive, but, you know, flatter chested and not quite as ridiculous over the top. And some people had a problem with that. So you just have to make your creative decision and then go with it. You know,
the thing about the Tomb Raider thing too is that I remember Tomb Raider 2013 and being like, she's still very hot in this. Like, I don't
totally.
I didn't really understand that whole thing really at all. Like, I think because she just wasn't a cartoon character, I guess, because she's very clearly like more realistic. But like, she's, I don't know. I just think there's too many in games that are coming out now. There are still too many like hot characters that exist that for me to feel like this is like a byproduct of like leftist ideology, or like everybody likes hot people. You know, like I just don't see it, especially when there's so many other reasons. Like the Concord's failure has so little to do with the pronouns in the character select screen. I can't even begin to explain. Like that is wokeness for Concord is probably like the bottom 20% of the reason why that game failed in the way that it did, because there's just as many examples of these types of things in very successful games, and I don't know how to square that really. Either it's go woke, go broke, or not, and it just seems to be more often the case than it just seems like it's not consistent enough to be a rule.
Yeah. All right, I agree. It's something worth talking about. Like there definitely is something to this, but I think the nomenclature is important, like how we talk about it, the intent. And I don't know that attractive characters would have saved Concord. I think just good characters would have saved Concord. There's nothing wrong with playing as an old Asian woman. I think that's actually kind of cool. It's that old Asian woman character in Concord sucks.
Yeah.
It really is just that simple. You know?
Yeah, she doesn't look interesting. She's not. Dude, I talk about in the context of Concord, I talk a lot about Overwatch. And dude, there's a character in that game called Roadhog. I don't know if you're familiar with this character. Literally just a fat slovenly pig. And he's hideous. And it's great.
Yeah, I mean that's what's necessary, you know. That's funny. There's a G.I. Joe bad guy called Road Pig.
That's weird that would be the first one. Because that feels like they should have reversed times. Because Road Pig feels like Road Hog sounds so cool.
Right.
The fact that Road Pig is first is a little strange.
Yeah, it is. You're right. All right. Final inquiry, my friend, comes from Nick Smirniotis. I feel like we talked to you recently, Nick. Hey, guys, I feel like I'm a crazy person, but am I the only one that wasn't excited about the Annapurna Remedy partnership? Happy to see that they will secure funding for future games, but the mixed media approach with film and television adaptations seems unnecessary. Their games already suffice as multimedia projects featuring FMV, etc. I'm worried Remedy will be going all in creating these multimedia universes for Alan Wake and Control, leaving little room for them to make new original games. Someone on Twitter called me retarded for this take, leaving me wondering if I am the only one who thinks this. What say you guys? Yeah, I don't think you're retarded, Nick, but I do think that you have nothing to worry about here. I think though the games are Alan Wake and Quantum Break and all of the rest, and obviously Control they all have this real FMV sort of thing going on in them to varying degrees, and there is like sort of crossover and all of that. I actually think that they play well into the idea of doing multimedia. And remember, the survival of a lot of these studios, if we want to get these really high quality games that are somewhat expensive, and remember, Alan Wake 2 still hasn't made its money back, and Control 2 is in development. I think Annapurna will now pay for half of Control 2's development. They also have, I think, some sort of publishing deal with 505 on this, so they're deferring costs, which is good. And I think that these kinds of deals allow them to continue forward to make the products that you want. And I would think that Annapurna and Remedy exist at a specific nexus where they can really help each other. I'm really rooting for Remedy, and I like what they're trying to do. And I think an Alan Wake, I said this, I think to you or someone else, I was like, an Alan Wake miniseries would be fucking sick. Like a 3-part Alan Wake thing would be so cool. And if they did it right, they hired the right people and cast the right people and all the rest. So I'm actually, we didn't talk about it on the show because I just thought it was kind of inside baseball shit. But yeah, for people that don't know, Annapurna, which is really a movie entity and a TV entity, has kind of gotten into bed with Remedy, and they're partnering up on some stuff now. So that's how it's going. Any thoughts on this, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the hesitance and the initial reaction of kind of being like, oh, well, I don't want this necessarily, like movie, TV, video game, come on. I get it. I have that same kind of impulse. But yeah, there is something about Remedy, and specifically something about Annapurna, where they exist along. They exist at such a weird parallel that I feel like they really make sense together in a way that a lot of it, like if it was Remedy and Paramount, I'd be like, oh my, oh no, no. But like this makes perfect sense to me. You know, like the type of movies that they do and the type of games that Remedy makes, I feel like they could actually complement each other pretty well. And yeah, I mean, does it stretch them thin? I mean, potential. I don't know really how true that is. I mean, like if you're making video games, the talent that is writing your video game and doing like ostensibly the literary art of like plot structure and all the like a lot of the stuff that like Remedy is known for, that's not a bulk of development. A bulk of development is programming and just getting the game. It's engineers,
animation, and all the rest. Yeah,
animation. And so I don't really know. Like, I feel like if anything, the story people are just excited to have more stuff to do. You know, like it's just like, oh well, I finished the game, and I mean that happens with a lot of games. Like people finish the story and then they just leave like a year before development because their part of the game is, you know, their contribution to the team is ostensibly done. So I'm sure they're excited to just have more stuff to keep them busy, stuff, exciting things that could potentially widen the audience. Dude, I would be stoked to be able to like show my parents like an Alan Wake related thing that they could grasp and that I could talk to them about. It'd be really interesting and really cool. And I think it's one of those few things where, because they are so intertwined with live action anyway, it really wouldn't feel like a weird leap like it would for, I don't know, God of War, where they're going to have to find some, you know, 9-foot tall freak to play Kratos and make it believable. I don't know. I think it's cool. I'm rooting for Remedy. Big Remedy fan. I loved that DLC that they did with the Alan Wake DLC is great so far. Anyway, the first part's out, second part's out. I think this year, maybe not.
I'm gonna wait now to get back to Alan Wake 2 until it's all just settled. Then I'll just do it all at once, because that was a really cool part of the original. My experience with that Alan Wake remaster was getting to just do it all. You know. Yeah,
I would do that too. I would wait for, you know, PS5 Pro, and hopefully that'll remedy some of your performance woes. But yeah, wait until it's all a complete package.
And don't forget, Annapurna is Annapurna Pictures, but also Annapurna Interactive has existed for 7-ish, 8 years now. And their first game they ever published was What Remains of Edith Finch, which people really like. But games like Outer Wilds, Donut Country, Kentucky Route Zero, which I still need to play. They published The Pathless. Remember that was like a PS5 launch game. No one talks about that game anymore.
I liked that one.
They published that questionable game 12 Minutes. They published Neon White. They published Stray. Thirsty Suitors, Open Roads. I need to play Open Roads still. I forgot that even came out.
What's Open Roads?
That was like that was the sequel, or it's not a sequel, but it was it was like the continuation of Gone Home and then Tacoma, and then it was this game, but there was like some shit with it where Fulbright was the developer, and then there was some like accusations and so on about Steve Gaynor and his toxic. So then he left the studio, and then the studio released the game just as the Open Roads team, which is interesting. So yeah. Anyway, they know what I say this only because they know what they're doing with video games, so they can help. So fear not. All right, Chris.
Yeah, I'm just happy that Remedy has a. I'm just happy that Remedy's continuing to do shit, even though Alan Wake 2 is seemingly like still in the red. I don't know. I really love that studio.
Me too. All right, my friend. Let's get out of here. It's time to go. It was good to talk to you. I will see you shortly. Anything? So are you going out tonight? Yeah, that's what you were saying you were doing.
I'm gonna pick up the car tomorrow. So I'm gonna be driving. I'm gonna be driving down tomorrow morning. Tonight I have the concert.
Right. That's right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Although, like, I don't know, man. I have a migraine today. It's pretty rough. But so I think after this, I'm probably literally just gonna like try and sleep for like 2 hours, just to. That seems to help.
Yeah,
sleep it off.
Yeah, and water.
But like, yeah, eyes are killing me.
All right, well, get going. Appreciate your time. See you soon. Be well.
Yeah, man. Excited.
Yeah, me too. And I'll talk to you when we get there. And I'm looking forward to doing the show. And thank you everyone for because this will have gone live basically when the show's happening. So we appreciate everyone that did come out and see us. But for the show. You can find us early and ad-free every week, patreon.com/laststandmedia. Support the show over there. Laststandmedia.store for merch and more. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time. Until then, goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Collins Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand's shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.